Chapter 1, Want to sell it again? Lynn Neon woke up with her body almost falling apart. It took her a long time to get the strength to get out of bed. The quilt slipped off her body, and she was covered in hickeys. The bathroom door opened. A tall man steps out. He was wearing only a towel around his waist, with a strong and lean upper body, 8-pack abs, and a faintly visible 6-pack. His short, black hair was still dripping with water. Lynn Neon was so stunned that she forgot to come back to her senses. "What are you looking at?" The man spoke up, picked up a cigarette from the bedside table, lit it, took a drag, and glanced at her. His features were superior, his lines were distinct, and even though he was naked from the waist up, there was no sign of his abstinence. Lynn Neon hurriedly looked away, not daring to look at him again. Her whole body felt as if it had been crushed. Lynn Neon got out of bed in a fluster, picked up her clothes from the floor and put them on. She had taken them off herself, and they were very clean and intact, without a single tear. Sherlin sat on the bedside smoking a cigarette, leisurely watching her dress. Because she was not feeling well, her movements were a bit stiff and funny, with a hint of greenish flavor. After half a cigarette, Lynn Neon was also dressed. Sherlin's cold gaze swept her up and down, and her lips curled slightly. Seeing her eyes red and about to cry, she looked like a soft rabbit who was bullied and dared not speak out. Sherlin took out her phone and pulled out her business card, slowly reaching out to her. "Scan me." Lynn Neon's eyes lit up, and she took out her phone to scan his QR code and add him to WeChat. The profile picture was black and there was nothing on it, just like him, so she couldn't see anything. Lynn Neon was a little worried. Could this be a fake account? Such a young and inexperienced little white rabbit, as clean as white paper. She dialed his number in a daze. Chapter 2, Scaring Her. At first, Sherlin thought she had picked up the wrong phone and hung up with a frown. But the call came in again. She called back several times after he hung up. Sherlin was impatient and simply picked up the phone. A soft voice came from the other end. "Sir, I am 20 years old, healthy, young and clean, and I am studying at Beijing University. Please consider me." Sherlin paused slightly, and his eyebrows furrowed even more deeply. He said a few words to the phone. "Are you okay?" There was silence on the other end of the line for a long time, as if she had been choked by his words. All that could be heard on the other end of the line was a small, faint breathing sound, as if she were nervous or struggling with something. Without waiting for her to say anything, Sherlin decisively hung up the phone. He took off his isolation gown and threw it in the trash can as he walked out of the operating room. He had just finished a few appendectomy surgeries and was suffering from a severe headache. Recently, the hospital has been short of staff, and even internal medicine doctors like him who specialize in difficult and miscellaneous diseases have been assigned to perform a few operations, and he has been busy all day. When he passed by other departments, Lu Zibai had just finished work and reached out to grab his shoulder, raising her eyebrows and greeting him. "What a coincidence! Dr. Sher, I finally caught you. Let's go have a drink after work." Sherlin glanced up at him and said in a low voice, "You have dark circles under your eyes like you've been possessed. If you drink anymore, you'll die suddenly." "Forget it, I'm just angry." Lu Zibai complained as they walked. "Are all college students nowadays so thoughtless? A girl just came in with ovarian necrosis and uterine erosion. She can't have children anymore and was crying in the ward. My head is pounding." Sherlin was stunned and thought of the phone call she had just received. The girl's voice was soft and a little immature, and her stuttering tone showed that she was nervous but also very serious. 20 years old, still young and inexperienced. If you see any small ads anywhere, there is a possibility that you will be deceived. His eyes darkened slightly, and he walked into the elevator with the car keys in his hand. He was not a good person, and he didn't bother to care about so many bad things. This kind of person who kills himself can't be stopped by a doctor. When they arrived at the underground parking lot, Sherlin got into the car and started the engine. Outside, Lu Zibai was still knocking on the car window. "Are you going to go out for a drink?" "No." Sherlin spat out 2 words and stepped on the accelerator. The Land Rover drove away mercilessly. At 10 p.m., the phone rang again. Sherlin was taking a shower, and his phone was buzzing on the countertop. He didn't even look at the screen, and he pressed the answer button with a casual swipe of his finger. "Sir, I really mean it. Can you give me a chance?" The familiar female voice came again, this time with a hint of a sob. as if she had encountered something urgent. This desperate and anxious tone, which Sherlin often heard outside the intensive care unit of the hospital, was nothing more than a person who had encountered difficulties but had no money and could only watch helplessly. Sherlin peeked out of the window and glanced at the familiar number, his expression showing some impatience. I don't know which idiot wrote down his number by mistake in the small ad, or the girl dialed the wrong number. Anyway, it was a wrong number. He didn't want to get involved. He lifted his hand to hang up and block the call, but then he suddenly remembered what Lu Jibai had said earlier that day. Ovarian necrosis, uterine erosion, and you can't have children anymore. Sherlin suddenly changed the subject and said coldly, "Are you a virgin?" The person on the other end of the phone was obviously stunned. What? Didn't you say you were clean? Are you a virgin? If you are, we can talk. If you're not, forget it. Sherlin was deliberately trying to scare her. Lin Mian was stunned for half a minute on the phone, her face burning. After a while, her low, almost inaudible voice came through. Yes. Sherlin stopped moving. The water above his head was rushing down, and after a long time, the water was a little cold, pouring from his head to the soles of his feet. Sherlin felt a little irritable all over, and even the cold water could not quench his restlessness. He took a deep breath and coldly said a few words. Check the goods. Chapter 3, the tips of his ears were red, as if they were bleeding. How do I test it? The girl's voice was stuttering, and she seemed to be trembling. She tried hard to suppress the uneasiness in her tone. Where are you? Sherlin asked nonchalantly. Lin Mian slowly replied, Beichenga University, School of Architecture. A designer? Well. Lin Mian buried her face in her arms, and half of her face turned red. She felt that she had disgraced this identity. Sherlin turned off the water, grabbed a towel to wipe his hands, and came out of the bathroom with his knuckles holding the phone. He didn't have the habit of bringing people home. But it was late, and he didn't want to go out. He was gambling, betting that the heartless fool would come. If she did, he would scare her. So he gave the address of his apartment, 1009, Building 6, Bafang City. Come over. Lin Mian's face was burning red, and her neck and earlobes were also red and bloody. She looked at the time. The dormitory would be closed in half an hour. She hesitated. But her mother's words kept ringing in her ears. We fed you, clothed you, and scraped together money to pay for your tuition. Now that you've become a college student, you don't want to send any money home, and all you do is complain about being poor. You're no better than Song Xiaoman next door. She graduated from junior high and works outside, and she sends home 10,000 yuan every month. What good are you? Lin Mian bit her lip. Seeing that she was silent for a long time, the other person suddenly laughed. If you don't have the guts, don't even think about making any big money. Go to bed, designer. Lin Mian clenched her fists and said with a stiff upper lip, I'll go. She was sitting in the corridor of the dormitory at this time. It was dark and there was no one else. She took a deep breath and made up her mind, I'm going. Wait for me. Bafang City is not far from a university. It is only 4 stops by bus and 2 stops by subway. Lin Mian followed the navigation to the last subway. The car was empty, only the announcement of the station. She sat down for a few minutes before the station arrived. Outside the residential area, it took her a while to find the building he had mentioned. It was a high-end apartment building, and the elevators required a card key. Lin Mian sat in the waiting area of the lobby, took out her phone and dialed Sherlin's number. I'm here. I can't get to the lobby. The elevator requires a card. When Sherlin received the call, he didn't think she would really come. He was silent for a long time, and then, as if possessed, he said, Wait. Then he hung up the phone, put on some loungewear and went downstairs. Downstairs, there were sofas and small tables in the waiting area of the lobby, with a few people sitting here and there. Sherlin glanced around and saw a girl in the corner from afar. She was wearing a white t-shirt, loose jeans, and black canvas shoes. She looked ordinary, and her every move revealed her nervousness. She looked both pure and foolish. He walked over to her. Lin Mian waited for a long time, looking around at the high-end buildings, feeling a bit at a loss. She straightened her back and sat up straight, trying to look natural. The next second, a male voice came from above her head, You? Lin Neon subconsciously looked up and saw a handsome face with a three-dimensional structure. He stood in front of her with one hand in his pocket, looking down at her condescendingly. He was tall and straight, with a unique scent of shower gel and masculinity. Chapter 4. Hurry up. Lin Neon's face instantly turned red. Her head exploded, and her whole body began to freeze. She never imagined that the man on the phone, who sounded so fierce, would actually be so gentle and clean-cut. He was so handsome that she couldn't take her eyes off him just by standing there. But the cold and aloof aura he exuded made her afraid to approach him. He seemed to have just taken a shower, and his short hair was still damp. His eyebrows and eyes were a little desolate and lazy. Lin Neon nodded and blushed, saying, "It's me. Follow me." The man said 2 words and turned to walk into the elevator. Lin Neon stood up stiffly and followed him with a buzzing head. The design here is high-end apartments, with 2 units per floor. When he got out of the elevator, Sherlin unlocked it with his fingerprint. With a click, he opened the door, his tone somewhat careless. "Go in." Lin Neon swallowed and walked carefully into the room. The room was very large for her, about 200 square meters, with simple furnishings in a very simple gray and white color scheme, and the details revealed a low-key but noble taste. "I heard that the houses here are very expensive and only high-end talent can afford to live here. You can tell from the luxurious facilities in the lobby downstairs that it would take years for an ordinary person to afford it." Lin Neon stood in the entrance, cowering like a mouse. Sherlin closed the door, opened the cabinet at the entrance, and threw her a pair of disposable slippers. Lin Neon obediently took off her shoes and put her feet in them. She walked into the living room, where the man was sitting on the sofa, his body slightly reclined, his legs crossed, a very lazy and casual posture. His deep eyes looked up and down her body, unashamedly and straightforwardly exploring, and Lin Neon felt like she was an item to be appraised and slaughtered. The man didn't say a word, so she didn't dare to move around. She stood in the living room, head bowed. Her head was a jumble of thoughts, buzzing and humming, and although she couldn't make any sound, she felt as if her head was deafening. The man's gaze was fixed on her body, his pupils were extremely dark and penetrating. He even changed his posture, staring at her every movement in a straightforward and nonchalant manner. Lin Neon's heart was pounding, her face hot and flushed, as if all the blood in her body had rushed to her head, and her hands were rubbing nervously. Sherlin placed the water glass on the coffee table, and there was a muffled thud, but it was impossible to tell his emotions. Lin Neon's hands clenched on her belt twice, gripping the buckle tightly, and she didn't dare to let go for a long time. The next second, she suddenly flinched. I'm sorry, 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 I'm sorry. She hurriedly turned her head and fled outside, trembling as she tried to open the door handle, but it wouldn't open. The door was locked from the inside. Lin Neon's heart leapt into her throat. At this moment, Sherlin slowly and leisurely walked over, his tall and slender body towering over her, effortlessly pushing her against the door. He kept approaching, his handsome face only a centimeter away from hers, revealing his strong sense of oppression. Want to back out? Too late. Chapter 5. Do you want something else? Lin Neon's pupils contracted, her face turned pale and then white, and her back pressed tightly against the door. I really regret it. Please let me go. Sir, I promise I won't come again. When Sherlin lowered his eyes, he could see her teary eyes, her red eyes and red nose, pitiful. He asked coldly, Are you really not selling? No, I won't sell it anymore. Lin Neon hurriedly shook her head. You won't sell it again? Lin Neon's tears could no longer be held back, and she said in a trembling voice, Never again. Please let me go. I will thank you for the rest of my life. Sherlin tilted his head and patted her shoulders twice with his knuckles. She is so thin, all bones, no flesh. He looked away. Get out. Lin Neon turned and opened the door, crying. She still couldn't open it, but a large hand reached from behind and grabbed her hand, pulling it up and the door opened with a click. The lock was actually reversed. Lin Neon didn't care about that, crying and rushing out, forgetting to change her shoes. It wasn't until she had run a few meters and saw the elevator entrance that she could no longer hold back the pressure and leaned against the wall in front of the elevator door and gasped for breath. It was quiet here, and she didn't dare to cry out loud. Lin Neon covered her mouth, tears falling one by one, and her teeth uncontrollably trembling and rattling. She was so scared. She had never dared to do such a thing. She had made up her mind, but she was still so scared that she had to escape. She was about to collapse. Lin Mian crouched on the ground, sobbing silently for 10 minutes or so, until her nervous and frightened heart gradually calmed down. At this moment, the phone rang, and the words "Mom" appeared on the screen. Lin Mian answered the phone in tears, seeking comfort in the midst of her fear, only to be met with a barrage of insults the next second. "You heartless son of a bitch, your father is disabled, but you are also an ungrateful son, relying on your mother alone to make money. Where is the money? I tell you, if you don't send money, don't even bother going to the doctor's appointment the day after tomorrow, just stay paralyzed in a wheelchair and die, just die." Lin Mian's sobs were instantly stifled. When she was 5 years old, her father took her to buy ice cream on his bicycle. On the way, they were involved in a car accident. Her father tried to save her by wrapping her in his body, but was hit by an oncoming truck and became paralyzed from the waist down. The perpetrator left a little money and ran away, and from then on, the pillar of the family fell, and the family was destitute. When she was 18, she was admitted to university. Her father, against all the odds, insisted that she go to school. He had suffered all the humiliation and abuse for her since she was a child, and secretly borrowed money from relatives to give her, just so that she could study well. Only by studying could she become successful. But the day after tomorrow was the long-awaited repair surgery. They hired an expert and waited in line for 5 years. If they didn't have the money, her father would have spent many more years in a wheelchair. Over the years, she has witnessed a man's dignity being crushed and rubbed against the ground. Lin Mian felt a sharp pain in her chest. She hung up the phone and wiped away the tears. She looked down at the disposable slippers on her feet. Because the soles were thin, the coolness of the floor seeped into the soles of her feet, invading her nerves and spreading through her limbs. Lin Mian shivered, got up from the ground, and turned around to walk back. She walked to the door in a few steps, wiped her face, and knocked on the door of 1009. After a moment, the door opened, revealing a handsome face. Without waiting for him to speak, Lin Mian spoke directly. "Do you want anything else?" Chapter 6, Can You Turn Off the Lights? Sherlin didn't expect her to come back. He looked up at her tear-stained face, which seemed even more pitiful than before. Her lips were chapped, her eyes red and swollen, and tears silently rolled down her face, suppressing her embarrassment and despair. It seemed to be provoked by something. He leaned sideways against the liquor cabinet. "Are you sure?" Sherlin asked in a light tone, wanting to see if she would really go all the way. Lin Mian sobbed and closed the door, then walked in. Sherlin calmly looked at the girl in front of him. Her skin was quite white, a bit dazzling in the light, her waist was very thin, a slim waist, her figure was small, and her legs were well proportioned. Her hair was messy and stuck to her face, and tears were silently sliding down her face, making her look pitiful and wanting to be ravaged. The more she cried, the more she aroused the beast in a man. It even dispelled the little bit of compassion in his heart. Sherlin's eyes were deep and knowing. He sat on the sofa and beckoned to her, his voice flat and indifferent. "You have 20 minutes. If I'm not interested, turn around and leave." He was already so fierce. But she was still not scared off. Lin Mian pursed her lips and slowly walked up to him, squatting down and leaning in close to him. She thought of a poem she had read by chance. "My lips are dry and my tongue is parched, my back itches, where can I find a jade vase to drain the golden waves?" Lin Mian approached, tilted her head back, and pressed her lips to the man's. His lips were thin, slightly cool, and had a faintly unique scent of coolness. She didn't, just stood still, and then touched him lightly. He didn't move, and Lin Mian kept doing it like that, gradually and boldly touching him, keenly sensing his breathing rate. Boom! The last shred of self-control in Sherlin exploded. He had had a little wine tonight, and suddenly he didn't want to hold back anymore. The next second, Lin Mian's back of the head was suddenly pressed by the man, and the man took the lead. His kiss was fierce, and compared to her previous flirting, it was nothing. Lin Mian was dazed and confused, and only then realized that this was a kiss. Later, she didn't know when she was pressed against the sofa by the man, and the light shone directly on her pale and slender body. The picture was extremely exaggerated. Lin Mian couldn't help but ask weakly, "Can you turn off the lights?" Sherlin smiled, "No." Lin Mian had to close her mouth and eyes, not daring to speak again, and buried her face in his chest. Chapter 7. Remember? After Lin Mian left the city, she took the subway back to her dormitory alone. Her roommates were all out of class, so she took a shower in the bathroom. Everywhere she looked, there were traces of blood, which looked a bit shocking. The man last night was not gentle, and was even a little cold and rude. She spent a long time scrubbing herself inside and out, then walked out of the bathroom in her pajamas and lay down on the bed, breathing a sigh of relief. The familiar surroundings and smells made her heart settle a little. Lin Neon took out her phone and looked at it. Sherlin had not transferred the money yet. She stared at the empty dialog box for a long time, typed a few lines, her face flushed, and finally couldn't help but delete it. Let's wait a little longer. She was not sure how to handle this kind of account. Sherlin had just finished an operation early in the morning and had been busy for a few hours, so he had forgotten about it. It wasn't until 3 p.m. that he came out of the operating room, took out his phone to check the time, and suddenly remembered this matter when his eyes fell on a few slight marks on his arm. He opened WeChat and easily found Lin Neon's account. Her profile picture was a cartoon in a dark tone, a black-haired girl wearing a hat. Her name was just two simple letters, LM. The two's chat box was empty, with no messages. The woman wanted the money so badly, but if he didn't transfer it, she wouldn't take the initiative to ask him for it. Sherlin pulled his lips, lightly tapped his fingertips, and entered a string of numbers. When he was entering the password, he thought about it and deleted it. Let's see how long she can keep up the pretense. Back at the clinic, he was almost working non-stop. The attending physician in the gastroenterology department had recently taken a leave of absence, so Sherlin changed into his clothes and took over his shift. As it was almost time to close, there were only a few patients. Knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. It sounded very polite and well-mannered. Enter. Sherlin replied. The door to the consultation room was pushed open from the outside, and there was a gentle, slow footstep coming in. What's wrong? Sherlin looked down at the medical record and asked without looking up. Doctor, my lower abdomen hurts. The voice was soft and a little bit familiar. Sherlin looked up and saw Lin Neon's face. Lin Neon also saw him at the same time. Her round, slightly chubby little face was slightly surprised, and then she blushed, and her ears also suspiciously turned red quickly. Is that him? So he is a doctor. She quickly lowered her head in embarrassment, and for a moment, she didn't know what to do. Instead, Sherlin looked at her coldly and indifferently, speaking in a flat tone as if he didn't know her. How does it hurt? Lin Neon sat on the chair, her head buried and her voice stuttering. It hurts in waves, it hurts when I walk, it hurts when I sit down. Go lie down on the bed and lift up your shirt. Sherlin typed a few lines on the computer and left a sentence without looking up. Lin Neon swallowed and got up obediently, walked to the bed, and lay down on the narrow examination table, with the ceiling above her. After a while, the man wearing medical rubber gloves came over. From Lin Neon's angle, she could only see his white coat and the name on the name tag on his left chest. Department of Gastroenterology, Sherlin. His name was Sherlin. Lin Neon silently wrote down the name in her heart. There was a faint smell of disinfectant on his body, which coincided with the smell from last night, and she couldn't help but have some thoughts in her head. The next second, Sherlin's hand pressed firmly and precisely on her lower abdomen, asking, Does it hurt here? Lin Neon blushed and replied, Further down. Sherlin moved down 2 more inches. Here? Lin Neon nodded embarrassedly, yes. His finger was almost pressing against her stomach. Although he was wearing gloves, the warmth of his finger transmitted through the rubber and invaded her skin, making Lin Neon gasp for breath. Sherlin pressed a few more places to determine the location, got her response, and finally let go of her hand, understanding. It wasn't a problem with her stomach, but with her period. He was very demanding last night, and it was her first time, so it was inevitable that she would feel unwell afterwards. But she didn't expect her constitution to be so delicate, and the pain had not subsided after a day. She is quite delicate. Sherlin sat at the table, tapping rhythmically on the keyboard with her knuckles. I'll prescribe you some medicine. Take it 3 times a day after meals. Lin Neon blushed as she got out of bed, quickly pulled up her skirt, and then obediently sat in the chair opposite Sherlin, waiting for him to write out the prescription. Sherlin printed out the prescription and handed it to her with his long, slender hands. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly added something. Remember, no sex for a week. Lin Neon's face turned even redder. She nodded her head in agreement, and took the prescription and her health insurance card from him. Did you remember? The man asked again, holding her card in his hand. Lin Neon nodded. I remember. Repeat. 3 meals a day, after meals, no sex for a week. Lin Neon repeated it with a red face, wishing she could dig a hole and bury herself in it. She could be in this state because of him last night, right? Except for the time she had sex with him, she had no sexual activity. Let's go. The man's body leaned back, and at the same time, he let go of his health insurance card and the prescription. Lin Neon took the slip and fled. When she reached the door, she hesitated for a moment, then turned back to him and said, "You haven't transferred the money yet." Chapter 8, she walked a little funny. Sherlin raised his eyebrows, took out his phone, and opened her WeChat chat box. How much money do you need? He asked her, tilting his head. How much do you need? This was the first time she had done anything like this, and she didn't know the market price very well, but the cost of her father's surgery was a huge sum. Lin Neon stammered, not knowing how much to say. Seeing her hesitation, Sherlin tapped on the keyboard with her long fingers and typed a few words. A few seconds later, she read out the search results. According to... He looked up at her. How much do you need, 50,000 or 100,000? Lin Neon didn't expect him to know that. The price he mentioned was much higher than the price posted in the school toilet, and she was a bit at a loss. She looked down and said quietly, 50,000. Sherlin pressed the light on his phone, and with a light tap of his finger, the amount was transferred. The sound of the transfer came, and Lin Neon subconsciously looked at the screen. When she saw the amount of the transfer, she was a little shocked. 100,000. He had given her twice as much. Lin Neon looked at the man in surprise, shocked by his generosity. He was supporting her, and subconsciously felt that he had given her too much. Sherlin put away his phone and looked up at her dumbfounded expression. Aren't you leaving? He had deliberately left half of it as her allowance. For a female college student, this amount of money is enough to support her living expenses for a long time. Lin Neon came back to her senses and took the money with a pout. Thank you. She whispered her thanks. The man looked at the computer screen, his superior facial features showing no emotion, his voice flat and cold. Next. Lin Neon left with the prescription in hand. Outside, she happened to bump into Lu Jibai, who was about to enter the door. The two of them passed each other, and Lu Jibai glanced at the prescription in her hand, his eyes full of curiosity. Lin Neon was so intent on getting her medicine that she left in a hurry. In the consultation room, Lu Jibai pushed the door open and entered, her tone a little gossipy. Digestive medicine? Why would someone prescribe gynecological medicine? Sherlin glanced up at him. Mind your own business. Lu Jibai leaned over the desk and looked at him, seeing clearly that the man had rolled up his sleeves to reveal a small section of his forearm, with several light red scratches. His eyes suddenly took on a meaningful expression. I said you didn't drink with me yesterday, it turns out you had an event. Sherlin stared at the computer and said in a flat tone, You barged in while I was working just to tell me this? Lu Jibai, is the little girl who just left your girlfriend? Not really. Oh, so it was a one-night stand. I saw that she was walking a bit funny. Did you hurt her? Sherlin looked up at him. Are you free? Lu Jibai smiled. I didn't think you liked sexy women, but I didn't expect you to like this kind of soft little white rabbit. Special? Sherlin thought of the image of last night in bed. Under the glaring lights, she was clean all over, white and thin, with a delicate figure, a fusion of innocence and charm, with red eyes and a whine, easily arousing a man's desire to ravage. She really is like a little white rabbit, someone who would like to cuddle. Let's get down to business. Sherlin came back to her senses and was too lazy to bullshit with Lu Jibai. Lu Jibai said seriously, Xin Li's birthday is this weekend, so I'm letting you know that we'll be gathering at the Xingqiao Club. I know. After Sherlin finished speaking, he kicked the person out of the office. Lin Neon transferred the money to her mother as soon as she left the hospital. She thought about it and transferred half of it first, in case she needed to transfer more next time. The other party accepted the money quickly and didn't reply, and you could feel the indifference and impatience from the other end through the screen. After waiting for a long time, Lin Neon sent a WeChat message to her brother. After Dad's surgery, please let me know the results. The other person replied with an OK sign. Lin Neon took the medicine and took the bus all the way back to school. When she was downstairs in the dormitory, she was blocked by a figure and a slovenly male voice called out to her. Lin Neon, stop. Lin Neon subconsciously took 2 steps back, keeping a distance of 1 meter from the person in front of her. The man in front of her was Song Zeyuan, a senior in the finance department next door. He was said to be very wealthy, a second-generation rich kid, who played around a lot, had a wild lifestyle, and changed girlfriends frequently. She had recently been stalked by him. Are you looking for me? Lin Neon hid the medicine bag in her hand and looked at him warily. Song Zeyuan stared at her innocent and spotless little face, and his heart itched, and he couldn't wait to get her alone and take her to a hotel to have his way with her. This kind of clean and innocent girl is a source of satisfaction. He stepped forward, his handsome face close to hers. Chapter 9, She was blocked by a man. Lin Neon's pupils suddenly widened, staring at him in disbelief. She had done this in secret, even calling from a corner where no one could hear her. How could he know? I didn't, don't say anything. Lin Neon bit her lips, afraid that something would be exposed. She had no intention of arguing with him and turned to run upstairs. Song Zeyuan grabbed her arm and easily pulled her back. Don't run away. I know you're short of money. I have a lot of money here. How about this? You spend the night with me and I'll give you 10,000 yuan. Lin Neon didn't expect him to be so straightforward. Her face turned white in an instant, a sense of humiliation at being toyed with and belittled. I don't need money anymore. Don't come looking for me again. After that, she hurriedly fled to the dormitory building. A man's provocation came from behind. It's useless to run away. I'll wait for you to come to me. Lin Neon clenched the medicine bag in her hand and her pace quickened. Her heart was still pounding when she returned to the dormitory, and it took a long time to calm down. There was someone in the dormitory today. Lin Neon put her bag on the bed and then secretly hid the pillbox in the toilet. Thinking about what Song Zeyuan had just said, her heart was restless. What on earth was going on? She thought about it for a long time, but couldn't figure out any reason. The only person who knew about it was Sherlin. Could it be him? Lin Neon thought of the man's cold and distant face, and couldn't help but bite her lower lip. She took out her phone and opened Sherlin's chat box, sending a message saying, "Are you there?" The next second, a red exclamation mark popped up on the screen. She had been blocked. Lin Neon stared at the screen for a full minute before she could digest the fact. It seems that the man really doesn't want to have anything to do with her. He probably thinks that she went to the hospital today to deliberately cling to him, right? Lin Neon pursed her lips and silently closed the WeChat app. Knock, knock. Someone is knocking on the door. Lin, are you ready? I need to go to the bathroom, hurry up. Lin Neon immediately snapped back to reality, quickly put away her phone, quickly opened the pillbox in her hand, swallowed 2 pills according to the instructions, then washed her mouth out, hid the pillbox, and opened the door. Her roommate Mu Tao was waiting outside and asked her in surprise. Hey, that's strange. Didn't you go to work at the supermarket today? Lin Neon often works part-time during her holidays and when she has no classes. She is rarely seen in the dormitory during the day. I had something to do today, so I took a day off. Lin Neon casually made up an excuse and then dove into the tent under the bed. With her internship starting in a month, she was busy working on her final project and also took a part-time job as a surveyor at her university to earn some internship experience and money. So she couldn't sit still and threw herself into her studies. For the next week, Lin Neon was busy running back and forth between the dormitory and the teaching building. She deliberately avoided Song Zeyuan and hadn't seen him for a whole week. Her worries did not come to pass, and everything was proceeding normally. Lin Neon, who had been on edge for several days, relaxed. Perhaps Song Zeyuan had lost interest in her. That's for the best. Dad's surgery was also completed, and he is now in the recovery period, and will be hospitalized for 3 months. The surgery was expensive, and the medication after the surgery was not cheap either. Lin Neon thought about it and then bit her lip and turned over another 10,000 yuan. She wanted her father to use some good medicine. As long as her father can stand up, she feels that it is worth it to do anything. On a weekend evening, roommate Mu Tao came over and asked Lin Neon in a mysterious way. Nian Nian, do you want to make a lot of money? Chapter 10, Will you follow me happily? What big money? Lin Neon is more interested when she hears about money. There is a part-time job tonight. It is a part-time job at a club. There is a night shift. All you need to do is pour wine and sell drinks. You get 1,000 yuan a night and a commission. Are you interested? Selling alcohol? Lin Neon was hesitant. She had never done this kind of work before, but she also knew that those clubs were mixed with all kinds of people and were not simple places. But the thought of earning 1,000 yuan a night really tempted her. She usually works as a cashier at the supermarket, making just over 100 yuan a day, which is a drop in the bucket compared to her father's rehabilitation expenses. She needed to keep earning money to feel secure. Don't worry, this club is very high-end. My friend has worked there part-time several times and it's been fine. I only dared to ask you to come along because you're so short of money. I saw you eating instant noodles again at noon. Mu Tao saw her concern and kindly explained to her. During the 4 years of college, Lin Neon had many part-time jobs that she helped recommend, and they were all very reliable. Okay, I'll go with you. After I finish this drawing. Lin Neon nodded and sped up her work. At 7 p.m., Lin Neon followed Mu Tao and her friend to the club. Because of the internal recommendation, the manager took good care of them. Lin Neon was assigned to a relatively harmonious private room and did a good job. She was not good at selling drinks, so she just kept pouring drinks for the guests. For her, even without a commission, the base salary of 1,000 yuan was very high. Fortunately, the guests were relatively easygoing, and she spent the entire 3 hours in the private room until the guests were ready to leave, when she finally had time to go to the bathroom. As soon as she entered the door, she almost bumped into a man. She subconsciously wanted to hide, but the man only looked at her once and then blocked her. Yo, Lin Neon, what are you doing here, serving drinks? What a coincidence. She never expected to run into Song Ziyuan. He seemed to have drunk a lot, his face was flushed, and he had a strong smell of alcohol on him. When he saw Lin Neon, he came over with ill intent. Why do you have to drink with him? Why don't you just drink with me? I don't know you well, please move aside. Lin Neon subconsciously wanted to avoid him, but he wouldn't let go and grabbed her, pulling her into his arms and holding her tightly. What's there to be unfamiliar with? A good night's sleep will make you familiar. To be honest, your face is really pure, and your body is clean. I really want to sleep with you. So stop pretending. Will you just follow me happily? Song Ziyuan pressed her against the door and lowered his head to get closer. Song Ziyuan, let go of me. Lin Neon was a little anxious and tried to push Song Ziyuan away, but it was useless. I couldn't get you at school, but I'm on my turf now, so I'm not letting you get away. Don't struggle, I'll make it less painful for you later. Song Ziyuan used both hands to hold Lin Neon's wrists, and no matter how she struggled, he wouldn't let go. Lin Neon was so desperate that she was about to cry. Her clothes were also pulled askew by him. It was a noisy place, and she shouted at the top of her lungs, but there was no splash. Seeing that he was about to kiss her, Lin Neon clenched her teeth tightly. Bang! The doorframe of the bathroom was suddenly kicked, interrupting the two people's entanglement. Song Ziyuan looked up in annoyance and saw the man's arrogant and indifferent face. He froze in place. Little brother-in-law? Chapter 11, Are you out of your mind? Sherlin stood outside the door, wearing a black high-end suit, straight and tall, with a full abstinence look. He had his hands in his pockets, looking at Song Ziyuan and the woman under him with a casual and indifferent glance, his eyebrows slightly furrowed, and his voice cold. What are you doing? Lin Neon heard this voice and reflexively looked up, meeting Sherlin's pair of clear, indifferent eyes. Her heart suddenly slowed down. It's him. He is Song Ziyuan's brother-in-law? Song Ziyuan forcibly grabbed Lin Neon's shoulders and smiled sheepishly. It's nothing, this is my girlfriend, I'm just having fun with her. Girlfriend? Sherlin bit her lips and her eyes seemed to be on Lin Neon's face. She had put on makeup today, her skin was white and translucent, her cheeks were flushed, her eyelashes were thick and curled, and her big, watery eyes were full of fear, with red circles around them, like a rabbit that had been bullied. Lin Neon was restless and quickly broke free from Song Ziyuan's grasp, arguing, I'm not his girlfriend. Do I have to be so clear about it, brother-in-law? I haven't had sex for a long time. It's okay to ask a classmate to sleep over for a night. I'll give her money. Before Lin Mian could finish her sentence, Song Ziyuan interrupted her and took Lin Mian by the hand to leave. He had met Sherlin several times at this club, and each time they had just played their own games. His uncle was not the type of person who liked to meddle in other people's business. Lin Mian stumbled as he dragged her, and when he passed by Zilin, he suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist. "What are you doing, little brother-in-law?" Song Ziyuan didn't understand what he meant. "Get out." Sherlin only had one word. "But she." Song Ziyuan wanted to say something else, but Sherlin gave him a cold stare, and he immediately stopped. "Next time, I'll have your father break your legs," Sherlin said coldly. Song Ziyuan was out of patience this time, and glared at Lin Mian unwillingly. He reluctantly turned and left. The bathroom was finally quiet, and only the two of them were left facing each other. Sherlin lowered his eyes and looked her up and down. White shirt, miniskirt, and a bow tie around his neck. It was the uniform for selling alcohol. "I'm here to work." Lin Mian took the initiative to explain, "Thank you for helping me out just now." Sherlin didn't say much, but walked out of the bathroom and leaned against the quiet corridor outside, where it was more convenient to talk. He beckoned to her, and Lin Mian walked over. "Do you need money again?" he asked. Lin Mian shook her head, "No." "Then why are you doing this?" Lin Mian answered honestly, "I want to save money." Sherlin looked at her for a long time. "How much do you want to save?" he asked again. 50,000. Sherlin looked at her with deep meaning, and the emotions in his eyes were dark and unclear. He loosened his tie, unbuttoned his shirt, and loosened the collar of his shirt before looking up at her again. "What if you can't save enough?" "What?" Lin Mian didn't understand his recklessness and looked up at him in confusion. "Are you going to sell yourself again? Or sell your eggs?" Sherlin's tone was faintly mocking, and there was a hint of unspeakable coldness in his voice. Lin Mian's face flushed, and even her ears were burning. Even the most patient person would not be able to stand such sarcasm from Sherlin. I didn't." She felt that he had misunderstood something and that she needed to explain it clearly. Lin Mian said in a low voice, "I want to save up 50,000 and give it back to you." She was stubborn, and she was only comfortable making money within her own logic. She asked for 50,000, but he gave her 100,000. She always felt that this logic was wrong, and she wanted to return it. When Lin heard this, he looked at her inexplicably, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. "Is this college student stupid?" "She's stupid from reading too much." "Do you have to pay it back?" He narrowed his eyes and looked up and down at her body. The work clothes at the club were designed to fit closely, outlining her curves, with a protruding front and a round back, a thin waist that was easy to hold, and two long, straight legs. Her cheeks were still covered with round baby fat, pure and lustful, which reminded him of the night a week ago. However, Lin Mian firmly nodded, "Yes, I have to return it." Sherlin lowered his eyebrows, suddenly approaching her, enveloping her in his own shadow, staring at her face with his extremely dark and deep eyes, and opening his mouth in a low and hoarse voice. "Then stay with me for another night to make up for it, how about it?" Chapter 12, 50,000 yuan is not that easy to make. Lin Mian's head exploded, as if she didn't expect him to make such a request. Her heart began to beat uncontrollably. Thump. Thump. Each beat seemed to jump out of his chest. Lin's face came closer and closer, his eyebrows and eyes were cold and stern, his facial features were clean and sharp, his high and straight nose almost touched her nose, and the faint masculine scent belonging to him came at her, blending with her breath slowly and leisurely. Lin Mian turned her head away in a very unnatural manner, her voice as light as a feather, "I can't have sex for a week." He had told her that. "It's been a week, it's okay." "But I'm the doctor, I'm in charge." Before she could finish, Sherlin bit her lower lip, and his long, slender fingers clasped her head from behind, holding her in place firmly and not giving her a chance to refuse. The breath that splashed on her nose was so hot that it burned her entire face. In a daze, Lin Mian's mind was a jumble of mush. This was her second kiss, and the feeling made her feel a little lost, not sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing. The first time tonight was in the car. The second time was behind the gate. It seems that with experience, this time Sherlin was even more reckless than the last time. His stamina was amazing, and the two times together gave her no chance to catch her breath. In the end, Lin Mion's legs went limp, and she grabbed his strong arm with her fingers, muttering in frustration, "He must be a secretive and passionate man, always coming up with new tricks." The third time, when the man was about to press down on her on the sofa, she couldn't help but say weakly, "Can we do it on the bed?" Sherlin looked down at her. The girl's hair was wet, her breath was slightly chaotic, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes were also red, and she looked pitiful and timid, which made him very soft-hearted. His eyes flashed slightly, and he loosened his grip. Lin Mian heard him loosen his grip. He stood there, looking down at her from above, his eyes slightly lowered, and there was not the slightest ripple in those cold, flat eyes. The overhead lights were blindingly bright, stark, and brutal. Lin Mian awkwardly covered his eyes. It wasn't easy to earn 50,000 yuan. The next morning, Lin Mian woke up early. The first thing she saw was the bright floor-to-ceiling windows and the low-key, simple ceiling chandelier. It took her a while to react to what she had done the night before. She had sold herself again, to the same man. On the other side of the bed, Lin was still asleep, with a thin quilt covering his waist, revealing his strong and well-proportioned upper body muscles. It was a very good body. Lin Mian felt a little embarrassed, so she quickly got out of bed and looked for her clothes before he woke up. Her clothes were not in the bedroom, but were scattered on the floor and sofa in the living room. She endured the aching in her legs and took a while to put on her t-shirt and jeans. She had changed her clothes when she left the club last night. Click. The bedroom door opened, and when Sherlin came out in his pajamas, he saw her squatting in the doorway, putting on her shoes. He glanced at Lin Mian, didn't say much, but went around the living room to the kitchen to get a cup of boiled water. When he came out, Lin Mian had already tied her shoelaces. "Well, I'm leaving now." Lin Mian hesitated at the door and greeted him. "Mm." The man drank some water and his voice was as cold and detached as always, a world apart from the way he was in bed last night. It was as if they were two different people. "My stomach hurts. Can you prescribe me some more medicine?" Chapter 13. Does Sherlin have a woman hiding in his house? As soon as the words came out, Lin Mian's cheeks flushed. After leaving him last time, her stomach had been in pain for 2 or 3 days. It had finally subsided, but after last night's ordeal, the familiar pain had returned this morning. Sherlin's movements paused slightly, and his eyes looked between her legs. "It hurts again?" Lin Mian nodded embarrassedly and answered honestly, "It hurts the same way as last time, and it's very uncomfortable." Sherlin pursed his lips, and a moment of darkness flashed in his eyes. He placed the water glass on the coffee table and left 2 words. "Wait." A few minutes later, he came out of the bedroom with 2 boxes of imported medicine and threw them into Lin Mian's arms. "These are painkillers. Take one after a meal once a day. If the pain doesn't go away after 2 days, come to the hospital and see me." Lin Mian quickly stuffed the pill box into her bag and thanked him. "Thank you. Let's go." He turned his head and returned to the bedroom, leaving her without a word. After all, she had been in close contact with him twice, and she knew more or less about his usual aloof personality. It was a business relationship, and it was already good that he had let her stay the night. Lin Mian put her bag on her back and was about to open the door to go out. Ding dong, ding dong. The doorbell suddenly rang. She was startled and looked up subconsciously. A familiar face appeared on the small screen at the entrance. It was Song Ziyuan. Lin Mian's heart stopped for a moment, and she reflexively returned to the living room, her face flushed and nervous and at a loss. "What's wrong?" Seeing her strange behavior, Sherlin poked his head out and asked. "Your nephew is outside." Lin Mian blushed and said, "I remember that last night, Song Ziyuan called Sherlin brother-in-law and looked very respectful. I never thought he would come to Sherlin's apartment. If Song Ziyuan saw her here, it would be too embarrassing." Sherlin seemed to be stunned for a moment, but his expression quickly returned to normal. He tied the straps on his pajamas while pointing his chin in the direction of the bedroom. "You go in first." Lin Mian understood his meaning in an instant, quickly ducked into the bedroom with her legs, and closed the bedroom door. Sherlin glanced at the slightly messy living room and walked over to open the door. "Uncle, why did you just open the door?" "My dad asked me to bring you the documents." Song Ziyuan's voice came from outside, and through the bedroom door, Lin Mian could vaguely hear the general gist. "The documents have been delivered. You can go now." Sherlin took the documents and unceremoniously sent him away. "Wait, I still have something to tell you. Song Ziyuan approached him with a smile and got straight to the point. It's about last night at the club. Can you just leave me alone? Sherlin frowned and glanced at him. What do you mean? Song Ziyuan smiled lewdly. That girl last night, a good girl, young enough, I heard she was still a virgin, so pure, I want to have her. Sherlin's eyelid twitched, and she glanced into the bedroom without thinking. Her face was indifferent and devoid of any warmth. No. Why? Song Ziyuan didn't understand. He had obviously played around before, but Sherlin had never once scolded him. This time, she suddenly put on the airs of an elder, and it really made him feel uncomfortable. You can't play. Sherlin gave a direct order. Song Ziyuan still refused to accept it. You don't think I'm ruining someone because of her innocent appearance, do you? I'll tell you, she even sold her eggs for money a while ago. I overheard her talking on the phone. There are many people in school who want to sleep with her. Even if I don't keep an eye on her, someone else will. It doesn't matter who sleeps with her, right? Hearing this, Sherlin's eyes sank a little. He was upset when he thought about the woman crying in his bed last night and the fact that she was being eyed by others. I don't care about anyone else, but you. He warned him directly, control your dick. If I find out what you did, you know the consequences. Song Ziyuan involuntarily shuddered. He was still a little scared when he thought about his brother-in-law's methods of bullying people over the years. Okay, I know, I won't stare at her. Sherlin gave him a cold look and turned to the closet to change his clothes. If you're not busy, get out of here and don't hang around here. Song Ziyuan watched his disappearing back and sighed helplessly. He was just about to leave when he caught a glimpse of a figure in the doorway of the bedroom. Song Ziyuan stopped in his tracks. Someone was actually in his cold and aloof brother-in-law's house? Hiding in the bedroom? Could it be a woman? Song Ziyuan suddenly became playful and walked towards the bedroom. Lin Neon was lying behind the door, listening carefully to the sounds outside. It had been quiet for a long time. The next second, the tightly closed door suddenly creaked and was opened by someone. Chapter 14, It's Really Tender. Boom! Lin Neon froze in place, unable to react, and her mind went blank. The door to the room was opened, and half of Song Ziyuan's body poked in, and Lin Neon's heart instantly went up to her throat. The next second, a figure rushed into the room like lightning, blocking her with his tall and straight body. Lin Neon suddenly fell into a familiar embrace. Song Ziyuan, get out! Sherlin's face was dark with anger, and she shouted at Song Ziyuan in a low voice. Brother-in-law, you actually have a woman? Song Ziyuan's mouth gaped in surprise, and he stood there not wanting to leave, staring at him in his arms. Lin Neon buried her face in the man's chest, not daring to move at all. The more Song Ziyuan looked, the more he felt that the woman's back was a bit familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere. He wanted to get closer to take a closer look, but was kicked hard by Sherlin. I told you to leave, didn't you hear me? He was really angry this time. His usually cold eyes were filled with a terrible darkness, as if he was going to kill someone the next second. Song Ziyuan dared not look again and had to leave in a huff. With a loud bang, the bedroom door slammed shut behind him. Song Ziyuan pursed his lips and thought to himself, what a hypocrite. He always looks so prim and proper, but he takes women home in private and is even better at it than I am. It wasn't until there was no movement outside that Lin Neon backed out of Sherlin's arms, her face still in a state of shock. Thank you for just now. If he hadn't come to the rescue in time, she would have died a horrible death. Who else did you tell about selling your eggs, besides me? Sherlin suddenly asked her. Lin Neon was stunned for a moment and shook her head. No, I only called you. There was only one number on the small advertisement in the toilet, and she only wrote down that one. Sherlin glanced at her. Be more careful when you make phone calls in the future, and look around more. Lin Neon immediately understood what he meant and nodded with a blush. Song Ziyuan had just said something outside, and she had heard it. It turned out that she had leaked it. When she was making the call, and Song Ziyuan had just happened to hear it. Fortunately, he didn't know that the person she called was her brother-in-law, otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Then, I'll leave. Lin Neon was about to leave when she suddenly remembered that he had blocked her number. She added wisely, don't worry, I won't bother you anymore. We're even. Sherlin. They had been to bed twice, and she made them seem like strangers. Lin Neon opened the door and left without looking back. Because of her stomachache, she walked with a slightly lopsided posture. Sherlin pulled his lips back and turned to go back and make the bed. He glanced over and saw a faint stain of blood on the sheets, and his eyes darkened. She really is too delicate. Bleeding at the slightest provocation. I wonder how she will satisfy a man after she gets married. Chapter 15, Unbearable. Lin Neon lingered in the hallway for a long time, and only when she was sure that Song Ziyuan was gone did she slowly walk back. Lin Neon, why are you here? A male voice suddenly came from the front, and Lin Neon looked up to see the man's face, and subconsciously straightened up. Mr. Qin. Lin Neon called him that, but the man in front of her was not just a teacher. He was also the school director of a university, Qinli. He gives a large sum of money to a university every year as a scholarship, and as a 4-year scholarship recipient, Lin Neon has taken a photo with Qinli almost every year. So they can also talk to each other. What a coincidence! I didn't expect to run into you in the neighborhood. Are you looking for a friend? Qinli was wearing a gray casual suit, with one hand in his pocket, and had a friendly, familiar smile. Lin Neon said with her eyes wide open, I'm here to work, and now I'm going back to school. She has always worked hard to earn money, and the teachers in her department know this. Qinli nodded knowingly, oh, I see. I remember you're graduating soon, right? This year's graduates? Yes, I'll be starting my internship in a month. Lin Neon answered truthfully. Well. Qinli thought for a moment and suddenly said, I'll talk to your supervisor. How about you come to my side when you do your internship? Lin Neon was taken aback for a moment and looked at him blankly. I have a design project here, and I need a little assistant. Would you be interested, Miss Lin Neon? Lin Neon's eyes lit up and she almost immediately agreed. I'm interested. Thank you, Mr. Qin. I'll do a good job. This opportunity is a great thing for a college student like her, like a piece of pie falling from the sky. Qinli is a school director, with a wide range of abilities and abundant resources. Being able to intern with him and work on projects together is something that Lin Neon never dared to think about. Okay, then it's settled. I'll come see you in a few days. Lin Neon was instantly happy. Thank you, Mr. Qin. Goodbye, Mr. Qin. She walked out of the community with a happy heart, and even her legs didn't hurt as much. It seems that the man is still a lucky star, and he easily gave her a good internship opportunity. Beep. Soon after Lin Neon left, a black Land Rover pulled up next to Qinli. The window was lowered halfway, revealing a cold and indifferent face. Qinli skillfully opened the door and got in. Dr. Sher, you said you were going to be there for my birthday yesterday, but you disappeared halfway through. What were you doing in the second half? Sherlin started the car. Something came up. What could have happened to you? Could it be that you've been with a woman? Qinli teased him, you've got scratches on your arms. Gee, they're still fresh. Which little wildcat was so rough with you? Sherlin glanced at his hands on the steering wheel, and his shirt sleeves were rolled up halfway, just revealing a few red scratches on his arms. Wildcat? Is it a wild rabbit that bit you in a fit of anger? Sherlin looked away, thinking about what she and Qinli had been talking about and how happy they had looked. She asked, without meaning to. The one you were talking to just now, is she your student? Chapter 16, The Taste of a Man. Qinli was excited to talk about this. Yes, she is a top student at our school who has won a scholarship for 4 consecutive years. The little girl has great potential and is excellent. She is a good seedling. You're good at judging people. What do you think of her? Is she capable enough? Qinli asked. Sherlin scoffed and pulled her lips. Scraping the small ads off the girls' toilets at your school is better than anything else. Lin Neon returned to the dormitory and poured herself a glass of water as soon as she got back. She took the medicine that Sherlin had given her and put it in her mouth. Ding! The screen of her phone lit up. She picked up the phone and opened it. Someone had transferred 1,000 yuan to her WeChat account. Her roommate Mu Tao's voice followed behind her. Nian, I transferred the money for your part-time job last night, but you didn't come home last night, and you came home even later than me. If you hadn't sent me a text message to let me know you were safe, I would have thought you were taken away by a gangster. Lin Mian put away the pillbox and blushed as she lied. I went to work at the convenience store last night to earn some extra money. You're working so hard, you're almost a 24-hour warrior. You're so desperate to make money that it's no wonder you have dark circles under your eyes. You haven't slept all night. Hearing this, Lin Mian's cheeks involuntarily flushed. In a way, she had indeed not slept all night and had worked very hard. I'm really sleepy. I'll go to bed and take a nap first. Wake me up for lunch. Lin Mian yawned and thought about climbing into bed for a nap. Okay, then you go to sleep. I'm going out to have dinner with the handsome guy, so I won't be with you. I'll come back at noon and take you out to eat. Mu Tao turned around and turned her little skirt, her delicate makeup glistening, looking particularly sweet. Lin Mian couldn't help but tease her with a pout. Dinner with the male god? Are you sure you're not on a date in a hot relationship? The love bubbles in your eyes are about to pop out. You've never been in love, so you don't understand. The most exciting part of a relationship is the period of ambiguity, especially when both parties are aware of the tension. Mu Tao raised her eyebrows and leaned over the bed to suggest to Lin Mian, Mian, I strongly suggest you find a boyfriend and fall in love. Otherwise, an honest girl like you will easily fall over in love. Lin Mian smiled and said, I'm too busy to find a boyfriend. You just haven't tasted the taste of a man, otherwise you'll be addicted and unable to extricate yourself. The taste of a man. Lin Mian thought of some unspeakable images in her mind, moved her aching limbs, and silently scolded herself in her heart. She is not addicted. After Mu Tao left, Lin Mian was left alone in the dormitory. She was about to catch up on some sleep in her pajamas when her phone rang. Lin Mian looked at the name jumping on the screen and immediately picked up the phone happily. Dad, why are you calling me? I miss my daughter. Can I call to ask how you are? Lin's father's kind voice came from the other end of the phone. Of course, I miss you too. Dad, how is your leg? Lin Mian sat up with her phone in her hand. The operation was a success. The doctor told me to stay in the hospital for 3 months, and I'll be able to walk again after I recover. Lin's father's voice was full of excitement. After being paralyzed for several years, he can finally stand up like a normal person. His excitement is hard to hide. By the way, Mian, I heard from your mother that you paid for my surgery. You're still a college student, and you haven't even graduated yet. Where did you get such a large sum of money? Only her father would notice her status as a poor student, while the rest of the Lin family would only urge her to send money, never caring where it came from. Lin Mian scratched the bedsheet and said with a forced smile, I took a private job a few days ago. The client is rich and has a lot of money. This is the design fee he advanced to me. Dad, don't worry. I'll start my internship in a month, and I'll be able to earn more money to support you. Hearing her words, Lin's father finally let go of his worries. Dad doesn't need you to support him. You can take care of yourself. That client is a good person. He's willing to advance you your salary. You should work hard for him, okay? She thought that the employer had already blacklisted her. Lin Mian nodded embarrassedly, I know. After a few words, the doctor on the other end of the phone began to urge Lin's father to do rehabilitation training, and Lin's father had to end the call reluctantly. After hanging up the phone, Lin Mian let out a long sigh of relief. Her finger accidentally grazed the contact list and she caught sight of a familiar phone number. It was the number of Sherlin, whom she had bombarded with messages. She stared at the phone for a long time, deleting Sherlin's WeChat and number. The transaction was complete, and the goods and money were exchanged. She and he would have no further contact. Let's just consider this a small episode in her life. Chapter 17, Running into him again. In the following days, Lin Mian threw herself back into her busy studies. Time passed quickly, and her life returned to its former calm, so calm that she even thought the absurdity that had happened was a dream. Before she knew it, it was time for her internship. During this time, Song Ziyuan bumped into Lin Mian a few times, but his attitude had softened a lot. He didn't dare to touch her, except for a few teasing remarks. It seems that his uncle's deterrent power is quite strong. Lin Mian has been looking for a place to live these days. She is going to start her internship, and since it is summer vacation, the school dorms will be closed, so she needs to find a place to live on her own. Lin Mian was originally going to share an apartment with Mu Tao, but Mu Tao had established a relationship with her ambiguous male god, and they had become boyfriend and girlfriend. The two of them lived together intimately. Lin Nian didn't want to disturb them, so she had to look for a place on her own. There is a neighborhood near the school that is being demolished. It looks a bit old and shabby, but there are many rental rooms in it. Because of the low price, many recent graduates live there. It took Lin Mian half a day to find a small studio apartment with 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom. It was simple and small, and she couldn't stretch her legs in it, but she was still very happy. Because this was her first real small room. After paying the rent and deposit, she moved in that night with her luggage, tidied up a bit and then went to bed. Buzz 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 buzz. The phone suddenly rang, and Lin Mian jumped out of bed. She looked at the name flashing on the screen and sat up straight. It was Qin Li's phone. "Hello, Mr. Qin." On the other end of the line, Qin Li's voice came through faintly. "Lin Nian, I heard that you moved out today and no longer live in the dormitory?" "Yes, Mr. Qin, I found a small apartment, which is convenient for me to live in and commute to work." Lin Nian answered truthfully. Because she had been offered an internship for the month, she had been in contact with Qin Li more often, mostly to prepare for the internship. "Well, I happen to have a project starting up, so starting tomorrow, you can come to work. I'll have someone handle the paperwork for you." Qin Li made it clear to her. "Okay, thank you, Mr. Qin. I will definitely report for duty on time tomorrow." Lin Nian replied in a row. After hanging up the phone, she rolled around on the bed with excitement. Qin Li's company is a well-known architectural design group in the city. If she can get in, she will have a bright future. Maybe there will be a landmark building designed by her in the North City. Lin Nian thought hopefully and gradually fell asleep. The next day, Lin Nian woke up early and took the subway to Qin's group. Since it was her first day at work, she was a little nervous, so she put on a light layer of makeup in the morning and didn't even have breakfast. The induction process went smoothly. The colleague at the front desk took her to familiarize herself with the company environment and then arranged a workstation. "Miss Lin, this is your workstation. Your immediate supervisor is our general manager, Mr. Qin. He will personally show you around. You can wait here for a while." Lin Nian nodded and politely thanked her. "Thank you." "You're welcome. Mr. Qin will be here soon. You can familiarize yourself with the environment first." After the receptionist had finished arranging everything, she turned and left. Lin Nian sat at her desk and looked around. There were very few people on this floor of the office, and there were basically no people at the desks. Next to her was Qin Li's office, which was closed and empty. From her position, it looked more like a junior assistant position. It was a great fortune to be Qin Li's assistant. Not long after, Qin Li arrived. He was still wearing a light gray casual suit today, with one hand in his pocket, a smile on his face, and a lazy, carefree look. "Good morning, Nian Mian." Lin Nian immediately stood up and greeted him. "Good morning, Mr. Qin. Don't be so formal. You're my student, so just be yourself." "Have you completed the paperwork?" Qin Li asked. Lin Nian nodded. "It's all done." "That's good. You can come with me. I have a design project today, and I'll take you along to get some exercise." Qin Li waved his hand, signaling her to follow. On her first day of internship, she was excited and secretly happy to have a project to work on. She quickly followed Qin Li. After half an hour, Qin Li's car stopped in front of the Beicheng Hospital. Lin Nian looked at this familiar building and inexplicably felt her heart beating faster. "This hospital. Lin Nian, keep up." Qin Li had already gotten out of the car. Lin Nian snapped out of it and quickly pushed open the car door to follow him. Qin Li walked with confidence, telling her, "Our current project is to renovate the building and redesign the interior of this hospital, so I'm taking you here to get a feel for the place. Later, you'll come with the designer to take measurements." Lin Nian nodded seriously. "I remember." She followed Qin Li around the hospital, taking in the interior design of the entire hospital, and finally arrived at the internal medicine building. Lin Nian was so absorbed in the view that she walked down the corridor without realizing it. As she passed a stairwell, she raised her hand to push the door open, and the next second, she was caught off guard by a pair of cold and deep eyes. Is that him? Lin Neon's heart suddenly stopped. Chapter 18 How Does It Hurt? The man was wearing a white lab coat and was sitting on the stairs, his long, slender fingers holding a cigarette between them, the cigarette's embers flickering in the dim light. He looked up, staring at her nonchalantly, and exhaled a ring of smoke. Looking for me? His voice was cold and indifferent, with a hint of the lethargy and dullness of a smoker. Even though he had suddenly seen her in this place, he didn't look the least bit surprised. Lin Neon quickly shook her head and summoned up the courage to say hello. What a coincidence, Dr. Sher. I'm here for work. My internship is at this hospital. She shook the measuring tool in her hand to prove that she was not bothering him. In her impression, people like him should be most annoyed by being pestered by women. Sherlin's eyes fell on the measuring tool in her hand. He looked at it for 2 seconds without saying anything, then put out his cigarette and let her take the measuring position in the corridor. Go ahead. He said 2 simple words. Lin Neon immediately understood, said thank you, and then walked into the hallway with the tool. Just then, Shinli came in from behind. When he saw Sherlin, his eyebrows rose in surprise. Oh, Dr. Sher, you're not seeing patients right now, are you? Sherlin rubbed his brows and said in his usual cold tone, I just finished an operation and came out to take a break. Shinli understood, I understand. You doctors have a lot of stress, so it's only natural to relax and let off steam occasionally. Lin Neon was working behind him, listening with his ears pricked. It turns out that even a calm and composed doctor like him can have mental stress. No wonder he is so wild in bed every time. I guess he vents it all on the bed. Oh, let me introduce you. This is my little apprentice, Lin Neon. You met him in the Octagon City last time. Do you still remember him? Shinli enthusiastically introduced him. Sherlin glanced at Lin Neon and felt speechless. Not only have I seen her, I've slept with her. Lin Neon is a very honest child. She will come to the hospital for measurements often. Please take good care of her. Shinli winked and greeted him. Sherlin's eyes flickered, and he nodded lightly, his voice flat and unwavering. I know, it's time, I have to go to the clinic. He turned to leave, but Shinli suddenly slapped his head and turned to Lin Neon and said, Right, Nian Nian, don't you have a stomachache? It's a good opportunity for Dr. Sher to take a look at you. He's going to be seeing patients anyway. Lin Neon had a stomachache, and he had accidentally noticed her covering her stomach from time to time in the morning. After asking, he learned that this was her old problem. But Dr. Sher is a skilled doctor, so he can help with the diagnosis. Lin Neon heard this and immediately felt a chill down her spine. She quickly waved her hand to refuse. No need, Mr. Chin, this is an old problem of mine. There's no need to trouble the doctor. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Sherlin raise his eyelids and ask casually, Oh? How does it hurt? This is so familiar. He asked me the same thing last time. Lin Neon immediately felt embarrassed, and her ears flushed slightly. It's just a stomachache, an old problem. You should treat stomach problems properly. Let Dr. Sher prescribe some medicine for you and take good care of yourself. Shinli chimed in. Okay, then let's go to my office. Sherlin said. Now, Lin Neon didn't even have the chance to refuse, and was warmly led by Shinli to Sherlin's office. It was the same consultation room as last time. In just a few days, 2 more silk banners had been added to the wall, both of which were gratitude banners presented by family members. Lin Neon silently looked at the words on them and felt even more awe for his medical skills. His medical skills are indeed very good. Last time she had a stomachache, the medicine he prescribed was cheap and effective, and she felt better after just 1 dose. Sit down and extend your wrist. Hearing the man's words, Lin Neon obediently sat down and stretched out her wrist. Sherlin raised his hand and pressed his warm and powerful fingertips on her pulse. The pressure was not light, and it was heavy and heavy, giving her an indescribable sense of oppression. Lin Neon subconsciously held her breath and dared not move. She had always thought he was a Western medicine doctor, but she never imagined he would be able to take her pulse. She had always had an inexplicable sense of admiration for traditional Chinese medicine, and now she saw the man's clear facial features, his serious and focused expression, and the warmth emanating from his fingertips. Her face was flushed. Sherlin listened carefully to her pulse, and his eyes couldn't help but fall on her wrist. The woman was very thin and pale, with translucent skin that revealed her blue veins. Her wrists were thin and soft, as if they could be broken with one hand. If they were in bed, he could pinch both her wrists with one hand. Sherlin's eyes gradually darkened. The strength of his grip seemed to increase imperceptibly. Chapter 19. Are you afraid of me? It was only when he sensed her faint emotions that he came back to his senses and let go of her hand calmly. His heart was beating a little fast. He lifted his eyelids. Why are you nervous? Lin Mion's ears suddenly turned red. I didn't. It turns out that there are no secrets in front of a TCM doctor, and even his heartbeat was diagnosed by him. Weak spleen, dampness, and weak stomach. Sherlin continued, eating junk food is bad for the stomach, especially instant noodles. Ha! Lin Mion didn't expect him to be able to tell that, and even to the point of knowing what she had eaten. Nian Nian, do you usually eat instant noodles? Li asked her in a loud voice. Lin Mion admitted with embarrassment, when I'm too busy studying, I just grab a bite, so maybe I eat a little too much. This is not good. The body is the foundation of the revolution. You are still young and it is the time to take care of your body. How can you just muddle through? No wonder you have a stomachache. Li frowned. Sherlin, give her some stomach medicine. I think this girl is working like crazy, not caring about anything. Next time, she might eat instant noodles again. Sherlin typed a few words on the computer and then said lightly. The stomach is nourished, and taking medicine is useless. He paused and added, but if you keep going like this, it's easy to develop duodenal ulcers, chronic gastritis, pancreatitis, and stomach cancer. Hearing the word stomach cancer, Lin Mion was so scared that she raised her eyes, just to run into the man's eyes that seemed to be smiling. His mocking eyes were no different from the last time he told her about the dangers of selling her eggs. He was just trying to scare her. Lin Mion bit her lip and nodded in a muffled voice, I know, I will eat well. After all, the word cancer coming from a doctor's mouth is still very intimidating. She is a normal person, of course she is afraid of death. That's good, it's time for lunch. Lin Mion, let's go eat. I remember there's a good homestyle restaurant nearby, just right for you to nourish your stomach. Li looked at the time and enthusiastically took Lin Mion to dinner. Before leaving, he casually asked Sherlin, do you want to come with us? Sherlin stood up, yes. Li? No, did he just hear it wrong? Sherlin has always been a workaholic at the hospital. He never leaves the building, and he can't even be reached during his lunch break. He had intended to be polite, but he didn't expect Sherlin to agree so readily. Is this still the same Dr. Sher, the high and mighty doctor? Why aren't you leaving? Sherlin had already taken off his white coat, and underneath was a well-tailored white shirt. He wasn't wearing a tie, and the two buttons at the collar were undone, revealing a small patch of collarbone, adding a few touches of sensuality to the air of abstinence. Lin Mion looked at him for a few seconds before hastily averting her gaze. She had to admit that this man was too attractive, and she couldn't help but look at him. Whenever she saw him, she couldn't help but imagine those blood-pumping images in her head. Her ears were even hotter. Okay, then take my car and we'll go together. Li raised his eyebrows and waved to Lin Mion, Mion, follow me. We'll treat Dr. Sher to a meal today, as a token of our appreciation for his services. Lin Mion hurriedly followed behind Li, keeping her head down the whole time to avoid him, and even sat in the passenger seat when they got in the car, leaving Sherlin to sit alone in the back seat. It wasn't that she didn't like him. It's just that, she still remembers his attitude. He had blocked her, meaning that he didn't want to have anything to do with her. So she always consciously kept her distance from him, acting like a stranger. After all, she had taken someone else's money, so she had to follow their rules. Asterisk. The restaurant is not far away, located in a commercial area near the hospital. Li ordered a lot of things, and in order to take care of Lin Mion, he mostly ordered stomach-friendly meals. He also asked Sherlin at the table for advice. During the meal, he kept on serving Lin Mion with food. Nian Mian, eat more. You're too skinny. In our line of work, you have to run around a lot, so you need to be strong. Lin Mion was flattered and nodded repeatedly. Thank you, Mr. Chin, I can do it myself. Okay, you can help yourself. Li looked at her like a daughter in the family, smiling. Lin Mion automatically started to shovel the rice in her bowl. It seems that the dishes recommended by Sherlin were to her liking, and she added vegetable soup. After she finished her bowl of rice, she felt much better in her stomach. After the meal, Li went to pay the bill. Lin Neon took the opportunity to go to the bathroom. When she came out of the bathroom, a tall, familiar figure was leaning against the bathroom door, blocking her way. Lin Neon looked at the man's face, her pupils instantly dilating, and she became a little uneasy. "You? Are you afraid of me?" Sherlin turned his head away, his dark, deep eyes staring at her. Chapter 20. Are you avoiding me because you've hooked someone else? Why are you nervous when you see me? He asked her directly. I didn't. Lin Neon felt embarrassed. The relationship between the two of them was already shady, so if she didn't hide, should she just greet him openly? Sherlin obviously didn't want to let her go. He lifted his foot and walked towards her, his tall and slender body pressing her against the sink. Lin Neon subconsciously backed away until her lower back hit the marble countertop, and there was no way to retreat. The man lowered his head slightly and his angular face came closer to her. Are you avoiding me because you've hooked someone else? He's more generous than me and offers you a higher price? Lin Neon suddenly opened her eyes wide and understood the meaning of his words in a second. He is my leader and teacher, not the kind of relationship you think. We are very innocent. Lin Neon couldn't help but explain. Although she was timid and socially anxious, she would not allow others to blaspheme Li in this way. Li was the kindest and most generous teacher she had ever met. Sherlin snorted at her words. He approached her again, and his powerful aura surrounded her, with every word he spoke carrying a warning. Li is not someone you can mess with. Do you understand? Lin Neon frowned, not understanding what he meant. Sherlin stepped forward, grabbed her chin with his hand, and whispered in her ear. If you need money again, I can allow you to come to me for a deal. After all, we are old acquaintances, and we are a good match in bed. If you behave well, I will give you a raise. Lin Neon's face flushed red in an instant. She pushed him away with all her might, feeling her ears burning and her head spinning. It's over between us. Let's just leave it at that. She finished speaking and fled the bathroom in a panic. When she finally got out of the hall, her heart was still pounding in her chest. Lin Neon reached out and patted her flushed face, trying to calm herself down. She had actually been flirted with by a man in the toilet. The seemingly reserved and abstinent doctor had a surprisingly loose tongue. At that moment, Sherlin also came out of the bathroom. Li, who had just returned from paying the bill, saw Lin Neon in this state and couldn't help but blame Sherlin. What were you doing just now? Why did you make my little assistant blush? She has a thin skin and is a good girl, so don't tease her. Sherlin pursed her lips and muttered, Really? A good girl? Is she so good that she climbed into his bed in the middle of the night and had sex with him twice? Li broke the ice. Nian, don't pay any attention to him. He's just like that. He's usually straightforward and doesn't have much emotional intelligence. Don't take him seriously. Lin Neon wouldn't dare to get into an argument with him. She was too scared to even look at him. When she went out, the man's slender forearm touched her hand inadvertently. Lin Neon quickly retracted her fingers, feeling as if she had been struck by an electric current. She wasn't sure if he had done it on purpose. But she was now extremely sensitive to all kinds of sensations. It seemed that whenever she encountered him, all her composure and calmness would collapse, and even her pores would expand twice as much. It was really strange. In the afternoon, Li took them to the hospital and left after answering a phone call. Before leaving, he handed Lin Neon over to another master to help take care of her, and Lin Neon continued her surveying work with the master. Since the entire hospital layout was to be changed, Lin Neon was responsible for the measurement data of the entire third floor. This included the entire internal medicine office and the clinic where Sherlin worked. Lin Neon took her time, measuring all the buildings and terrain on the third floor before slowly making her way to Sherlin's office. Fortunately, the man had a patient in front of him and couldn't pay attention to her for a while. After explaining the situation, Lin Neon took her tools and got to work, absorbed in her work. She glanced over and saw the examination table in the inner room. Lin Neon couldn't help but think of the last time she lay on it, with her clothes pulled aside, as he pressed down on her stomach. The strength and warmth of the man's fingers seemed to be still engraved on her lower abdomen, warm, heavy, and thick. She blushed slightly and looked away without being noticed. Lin Mian continued to devote herself to her work. She was short, and with one hand holding a long ruler, she reached up to the ceiling on her tiptoes. Her short t-shirt lifted up with her movements, revealing a small, white waist. It was so thin that it seemed like it could be snapped with one hand. When Lin sent the patient away, he glanced at her in the corner of his eye. Just one glance, and he couldn't take his eyes off her. Chapter 21 I'm Not Going Back. Her waist was thin and white, her figure was exquisite, and the black t-shirt made her skin look even whiter and more delicate. Sherlin's gaze fell on her slender waist, then her pelvis, calves, ankles. Lin Mian didn't notice the man's aggressive gaze at all. After measuring her, she wrote down the measurements in her notebook and was about to put away her measuring tape when she suddenly slipped and fell forward. Lin Mian opened her eyes wide and instinctively let out a scream. Just as she was about to fall, a large hand suddenly reached out from behind and lightly grabbed her waist. The man's handsome face was right in front of her, his white coat close to her, and the smell of disinfectant wafted from his nose. "Thank you." Lin Mian blushed and sat up to thank him. However, Sherlin did not let go of her, and with his large hand holding her waist, he asked her, as if by magic, "You don't seem to be short of money lately?" Lin Mian was stunned for a moment, and quickly realized what he meant behind her ear. Her face became embarrassed uncontrollably. She pushed Sherlin away and kept a distance from him, saying firmly, "No, I won't be short of money anymore. Dr. Sher, thank you for helping me in my time of need, but that was just a transaction. Let's just leave it at that." Sherlin had expected her to say that, and his expression did not change. At that moment, Lin Mian's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and saw that it was her mother calling. Lin Mian didn't want to stay any longer, so she packed up her toolbox and fled the consultation room in a panic, holding her cell phone. The room was empty, and Sherlin looked at the empty palm of her hand, took a deep breath, and suppressed the inexplicable anger in her heart. She was just a green girl, and it had only been 2 nights. He was inexplicably addicted to her. It's really a ghost. In the empty hallway, Lin Mian sat on the stairs with her cell phone in her hand. A familiar voice came through the receiver. "Your brother has found a job, and he can start in 2 weeks. But it will cost 60,000 yuan in referral fees. Your father said you are a big designer now? Try to find some money and transfer it to me." Lin Mian listened for a while and her head began to ache. "Mom, I just started working, where would I get that kind of money? You're a top student at your school. I heard that after graduation, you'll be earning $1 million a year. How can you not have money? How can you not be able to come up with 60,000 yuan? Lin Mian's headache explained, "I'm only a designer's assistant now, I'm on a dead salary, and I'm still in the learning stage, so it's not easy to make money. My brother started working earlier than me, so he should have some savings, right?" When Lin's mother heard this, she became even more angry. "I don't care if you can raise the money for your father's operation, you still have to raise money for your brother. You are the only college student in the family, you can't just ignore the 2 male members of our family." Lin Mian. Lin's mother continued to scold her, "I'm telling you, either you send me the money, or you come back and get married." The bride price for the girl next door, Zhao, was 300,000 yuan. What use is a poor, ignorant girl like you? Lin Mian became more and more angry as she listened, and she mustered up the courage to retort, "I'm not going back." She had studied hard for 12 years and finally escaped from that suffocating place. She would never go back to get married. In the past, she had endured the scolding and humiliation for the sake of her father. But now that her father's leg has healed, she doesn't want to put up with it anymore. "You little brat, have you gone too far? You've grown up and you dare to argue with me? If you have the guts, come back here and I'll beat you to death." The other end of the phone was still yelling and cursing, and she was so emotional that it seemed like she was going to tear her apart the next second. Lin Mian hung up the phone in a cold heart. The world was finally quiet. She leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. It took a long time for her to recover. Although she was used to those harsh words, she still felt uncomfortable and suffocated every time she got off the phone. The phone kept ringing, like a death sentence. It wouldn't stop until she answered it. Lin Mian simply turned off her phone. She sat in the hallway for a while, organizing her emotions, before carrying her toolbox out. She ran into the elevator just as she was leaving, and ran into Sherlin, who was leaving work. He was waiting for the elevator with Lu Jibai, his hands in his pockets. He was wearing a white lab coat, but now he was wearing a gray casual outfit, with long, straight legs and a cool aura. He easily attracted the attention of a group of young nurses. Chapter 22, Addicted Twice. Lin Nian quickly changed direction before he realized what was going on and went to the other end of the corridor to take the elevator. Nian Nian, I've been looking for you for so long. Why is your phone off? It's almost time for lunch, and Mr. Qin asked me to take you to lunch on time. As soon as she got on the elevator, she bumped into Chen Tian, the designer who was taking her around today. Lin Nian smiled apologetically. Sorry, Tian, my phone turned off automatically. I was going to look for you in the cafeteria. It's a coincidence that you're going to the cafeteria with me. Mr. Qin said that you have a weak stomach, so he asked me to keep an eye on you while you eat. Chen Tian took her arm and the two of them got out of the elevator together. Because they were staff members, the hospital had issued them cafeteria cards, so they could swipe their cards to pay for their meals at mealtimes. Lin Nian found a seat with her tray and sat down to eat with Chen Tian. Suddenly, there was a commotion around them, as if they were discussing someone. She looked up curiously to see the source of the noise, and saw the cold figure in the crowd. He actually came to the cafeteria to eat? It was a bit out of character for him. Not far away, Sherlin was standing in front of the window, ordering food. There were only a few simple dishes, and he sat down with a plate in one hand, looking for a nearby seat, not far from Lin Nian. When he sat down at the table, Sherlin suddenly looked up and glanced at Lin Nian. That glance was quite meaningful. Lin Nian felt his gaze and quickly looked away, burying her head in scooping up rice with her mouth. Chen Tian, who was standing next to her, started chatting with her about gossip. Lin Nian, the handsome guy just looked at you at 10 o'clock in the upper left corner. Do you know him? Lin Nian knew who she was talking about without having to look up, and quickly denied it. I don't know him. He is the most eligible bachelor in the company, a handsome guy with a strict code of abstinence. It's such a pity that you didn't bump into him when you went to the third floor to take measurements today. Chen Tian sighed. A handsome guy who abstains from sex? Lin Nian silently complained to herself as she stuffed rice into her mouth. When he is in bed, he is not at all abstinent. He plays all kinds of games, more exciting than anyone else. Nian, let me tell you, we designers need to be flexible. Next time you meet those two handsome guys, if you have the chance, add them on WeChat. You can tell from their clothes that they are well off. These are all potential high-quality customers. Understand? Chen Tian was giving her a lecture on the subject. This girl is good in everything, but she is a bit too honest and doesn't know how to take the initiative. I know, thank you, Tian. Lin Nian pretended to be serious when she agreed, but in fact she sighed in her heart. It was impossible to add WeChat. She had already blocked her WeChat account. It's really hard to make connections. On the other side of the table, Lu Jibai was teasing Sherlin with interest. Today is really a rare occurrence. Director Sherda, who never comes to the cafeteria, has actually invited me to eat in the cafeteria. The motive is too obvious. Sherlin casually picked at the food on his plate and said lightly, Oh? What motive could I have? Keep pretending. Lu Jibai laughed at him. It's been 10 minutes since you entered the cafeteria, and you've looked at that girl no less than 3 times. You're so obvious. Are you here to eat or to eat her? Sherlin raised his lip, not saying anything. Seeing that he had rarely given an explanation, Lu Jibai understood. Why did he fall asleep twice? Is he getting greedy? Eat your food and don't ask unnecessary questions. Sherlin stopped him. Look at you, a man in his 20s. What are you shy about? If you like sleeping, then sleep. That girl looks dumb and silly, but I didn't think she would be able to make you think about her. Is she good in bed, with many tricks and a good taste? Lu Jibai was a bit tempted. He also wanted to taste the flavor of an inexperienced college student. Sherlin listened to his words and felt inexplicably upset. He put down his chopsticks, frowned lightly, and gave him a light piece of advice. It's best that we don't sleep with the same woman. Why? It's awkward. Lu Jibai. Chapter 23, Is Sherlin not interested in women? Because of the phone call yesterday, Lin Nian was distracted all day. During this time, she dared not delay the progress of her work. She turned on her phone for a while, and just as she turned it on, her mother's phone bombarded her with calls, and the ringtone rang one after another. She had no choice but to keep her phone off. She had finished measuring the 3rd floor yesterday, and spent the whole day on the 6th floor, never seeing Sherlin again. When she finished work that evening, Lee suddenly appeared at the hospital to personally pick her up. "Mr. Chin, why are you here?" Lin Neon was quite surprised to see him. "I'm done with work and came to pick you up for dinner. You're always not eating properly, which makes me worry. Can I not keep an eye on you?" Lee said half-jokingly. Lin Neon felt very embarrassed. She had only been working for 2 days, but she was already eating at Lee's expense, and every meal was a big restaurant-style meal. In the past, when she was still in school, she wouldn't have dared to do that. "Mr. Chin, actually my stomach is not that fragile. The hospital has given me a cafeteria card, and my meals have been very good these past 2 days. It's not good to always make you spend money. It's just a small amount of money, it's not a big deal." Lee waved his hand, not taking it to heart at all. "I've come all this way, will my little apprentice do me the honor of having a meal with me today?" Since he had already said that, Lin Neon could not refuse, and simply nodded. "Okay, then I'll treat you to dinner when I get paid. I'll remember that you owe me a meal." Lee laughed heartily, then picked up Lin Neon's toolbox and walked out with her. "Mr. Chin, please let me carry your toolbox." Lin Neon was flustered. What was the point of letting her boss carry her toolbox? This thing is heavy enough. With a man around, there's no reason for a girl to carry it. Lee smiled and said in a very easygoing manner, "Just follow me. Get used to it. Don't be too stressed." Lin Neon felt flattered. Teacher Chin is really nice. She has never met a more easygoing and kind teacher. She silently encouraged herself, "Lin Neon, come on, work hard and repay Teacher Chin." When they arrived at the underground parking garage, Lee had just started the engine when a black Range Rover suddenly cut in front of them. The license plate number was all too familiar, so Lee rolled down the window to say hello. "Dr. Sher, are you off work already?" Through the window, Sherlin caught a glimpse of Lin Neon in the passenger seat. He looked at her for 2 seconds and replied lightly, Lee said, "I'm going to dinner with Nian Nian at Xiangye Pavilion. Do you want to come?" Sherlin's gaze once again slid over to the girl in the passenger seat, Lin Neon, who didn't even want to look at him. She deliberately glanced away, her intention to avoid him obvious. Oh, she doesn't like him. It's as if he were some kind of monster. Sherlin pulled his lips and coldly looked away. "No, I have something to do." Lee didn't ask anymore, just nodded. "Okay, you go ahead." The 2 cars drove out of the garage one after the other. The black Land Rover quickly disappeared into the traffic. Lin Neon, sitting in the passenger seat, let out a sigh of relief. Her whole heart was set at ease. It was a close call. It's a good thing he wasn't there. Otherwise, the pressure would have been too much. She always felt that when she was with Lee, Sherlin looked at her with a kind of sharpness that was both there and not there, which made her feel uneasy. "By the way, Lin, did you and Sherlin know each other before?" Lee suddenly asked this question out of the blue. Lin Neon's heart twitched slightly, and she shook her head and said, "No, I don't know." "Why are you asking, Mr. Chin?" "Nothing, I just think there's something wrong with the way he looks at you." Lee smiled, "But I know him well, he's cold and indifferent, like plain water, he doesn't like women, he's boring, probably won't do anything to you." Lin Neon pursed her lips and dared not say a word. She suddenly realized that they didn't seem to know much about Sherlin. At least in terms of not being close to women. Half an hour later, the car stopped in front of Xiangye Pavilion. Lee had already booked a table, and Lin Neon followed him in. The restaurant was more upscale than the last one, with beautiful piano music playing in the background and the waiters being very polite. It was the first time Lin Neon had been to such a high-end restaurant, and she was a little nervous. Lee took good care of her, introducing the restaurant's specialties to her and helping her order a few dishes, which relieved Lin Neon's difficulty in choosing. The waiter left with the menu. After a while, 2 figures suddenly appeared at the next table. Because they were too eye-catching, Lin Neon looked up and glanced at them. She was shocked by the sight. Chapter 24. He is always there. The man was dressed in a white shirt and black suit, sitting casually in his seat. He was handsome, aloof, and easily attracted the attention of the opposite sex. The cold and indifferent side of his face was engraved in her bones the moment she glanced at it. Opposite him sat a beautiful woman, with delicate makeup, tall and wearing a sexy black dress, looking very intimate. Sherlin handed her the menu, and she smiled sweetly and looked down toward her. Lin Neon subconsciously looked away. "Oh, Dr. Sher, I thought you weren't coming to dinner with us, but it turns out you have a date." Shinli also saw them and walked over with a mischievous smile. Sherlin smiled lightly, not saying anything. "I heard that you said this restaurant was good, so I came to try it." Shinli chuckled. "This restaurant has a light flavor and is good for the stomach. I brought Mian here on purpose." "Oh, it seems that Mr. Chin is very concerned about his young apprentice. He even went so far as to bring her here to eat." Sherlin gave Lin Neon a meaningful glance. Lin Neon only felt that he was saying something, and she didn't want to respond. "Of course I have to pay more attention to my little apprentice. She is my only talent." Shinli winked and said, "I'm just trying to be helpful." "Okay, I won't bother you on your date. Let's eat separately." Sherlin pulled back her lips and subtly withdrew her gaze. Shinli returned to his seat, and the dishes were served one after another. The two of them began to eat. Lin Neon felt like a thorn in her back during the meal. From her angle, she could see the man in the next seat looking at her from time to time, with a hint of intentionality. Their eyes met several times, and she always hurriedly looked away. For some reason, the more she tried to avoid him, the more he seemed to be following her around. It was like metaphysics, very puzzling. Mian? Lin Neon quickly snapped back to reality when Shinli called her from across the table. "Do you like sweet food? I saw that you had almost finished eating all the sweet cakes on this plate. The other dishes in their family are also very good, so you should try them." Shinli offered to help her with the dishes. Lin Neon was flattered. "Thank you, Mr. Chin. You've graduated, so you don't have to call me Teacher Chin. Call me by my name." Shinli has a casual and gentle temperament, and he is not at all arrogant, which makes him seem approachable. Lin Neon was flustered. "That's too disrespectful. I'd better call you Mr. Chin, just like the other colleagues." She heard everyone in the company call him that. "You are different. You are someone I personally trained. To distinguish you from the others, why don't you call me Master? It will make us closer," Shinli suggested with a smile. Since he had already said it, Lin Neon obediently nodded. "Okay, Master." In the design industry, as a newcomer, she really needs a good master to learn from. She was already very happy to have been chosen by Shinli, and was naturally very happy to recognize him as her master. After the meal, Shinli went to pay the bill. Lin Neon immediately got up and left with him. When passing by Rin's seat, Shinli greeted him, and Lin Neon lowered her head and dared not look into the man's eyes. He was dating other women, and she felt guilty even looking at him, as if she were cheating on him. After leaving the restaurant, Shinli received a phone call, which sounded urgent. "Lin Neon, where do you live? I'll take you home first." Lin Neon knew that he was in a hurry, so she said wisely, "I live a little far away, and traffic jams at this time of day will take too much time. You go ahead, I'll take the bus home." "How can that be? I brought you out, so I'll naturally take you back." Shinli insisted. "Really, it's not necessary. It's quick to take the bus. There are priorities. I can't delay your urgent business." Lin Neon waved his hands repeatedly. Shinli wanted to say something else, but the phone rang again. He could only compromise. "Then I'll leave you to it. Call me when you get back to let me know you're safe." "Yes, I understand." Shinli drove off in a hurry. Lin Neon checked the route and went to the nearby bus stop to wait for the bus. From a distance, she saw two figures walk out of the restaurant. The tall woman got into Sherlin's car, and then the car started up and the black Land Rover drove past her. Lin Neon subconsciously lowered her head and hid herself. It seems that he has a new love interest and won't be looking for her anymore. After driving for a while, Sherlin suddenly stopped the car and said to the woman without changing his expression, "I have something to do, I can't drive you today, you can take a taxi, I'll reimburse you." The woman was reluctant. "Dr. Sher, you have already treated me to dinner. I will treat you to a movie at a private theater. What can't wait until after the movie is over?" Sherlin frowned. Who said I wanted to go to the movies with you? I just wanted to have dinner with you and complete the task my family gave me. Don't think too much. The woman couldn't believe it. You. Get off the car. Chapter 25. Lin Neon, are you being stubborn? The woman didn't expect him to change his face so quickly. But she couldn't afford to offend the man in front of her, and she dared not get involved. His methods were feared in the circles, not to mention that he was born in the North City, a family with a single surname that overshadowed the world. This kind of man is better avoided than offended, or you won't know how you died. The woman had no choice but to get off the bus and leave. Sherlin turned the steering wheel, circled back, and finally stopped next to the bus stop. Sure enough, Lin Neon was still there, standing alone and waiting for the bus. Get in. He lowered the window and said concisely. Lin Neon was surprised for a second when she saw him, and then looked in his car. The passenger seat was empty, with no one in it. Did the woman just leave? What did he mean by that, seamless connection? Lin Neon didn't want to get on for a moment, shaking his head to refuse him. I'll take the bus back. Sherlin continued, come on up, I have something to ask you. What could he possibly want to talk to her about? Lin Neon would never believe him. She took 2 steps back, her resistance obvious, and she didn't want to get into his car. Sherlin was a little impatient. Lin Neon, don't you understand what I'm saying? Lin Neon pursed her lips, leaning her back against the bus stop sign, not moving an inch or saying a word. Stubborn. She wouldn't get in the car, and he wouldn't leave. The two of them just stood there, wasting time. Until the car behind began to honk, and the horn sounded. But Sherlin didn't seem to hear it, and she didn't move at all, waiting for her. Hey, sis, get on the bus. Can't you two fight it out on the bus? Don't block the road. Yes, that's immoral. The driver behind him yelled at her, attracting a wave of complaints from other drivers. Lin Neon was too shy to continue arguing, so she had no choice but to compromise and open the door to get in the car. She originally wanted to sit in the back, but after pulling the door for a long time, she couldn't pull it open, so she resigned herself to pulling open the passenger seat and getting in. Fasten your seatbelt, Sherlin reminded her. Lin Neon pulled the seatbelt and fastened it, and the Land Rover roared out of the bus stop. After passing an intersection and waiting for the traffic light, Sherlin suddenly asked her, what is your relationship with Chinli? Lin Neon didn't react. Sherlin snorted, Xianye Pavilion, a high-end restaurant, a dinner can be equivalent to half of your monthly salary. Do you think Chinli is so concerned about everyone? Lin Neon frowned and explained, he said that I was his apprentice, so he took care of me a little more. This kind of nonsense is only good for fooling a college student like her who is so naive. Sherlin tapped the steering wheel with his finger and said in a cold tone, I'm warning you again, stay away from him. Why? Lin Neon felt that he was inexplicable. Her relationship with Chinli is none of his business. They had already finished the deal, but he was still sticking his nose in. She really didn't understand. He's not as simple as you think. I'm giving you this advice out of goodwill, since we slept together twice. Lin Neon, don't ignore it. Sherlin's eyebrows furrowed. Lin Neon was too lazy to talk to him. She couldn't convince him, and he wouldn't listen to her explanations, so she simply shut up and didn't say anything. What does it matter if we slept together twice? We're still strangers who have been blacklisted. The green light came on and the Land Rover was back on the road. Neither of them said a word. Sherlin sensed that this woman was obedient on the surface, but actually very stubborn. She is just soft-tempered and good at resisting with silence. He pinched his brow with one hand and changed the subject. Where are you moving to? Lin Neon's heart leapt. Why are you asking this? To take you back. Sherlin glanced at her, somewhat helpless. Lin Neon looked outside. The car had already reached the overpass, so she had to give her address, Wanchue Ting Community. Sherlin searched the navigation system and then recalled that it was a resettlement community with many partitioned rooms and a mixed population, which was very chaotic during the week. She didn't expect to rent in such a place. He set the navigation system and the car drove over. 40 minutes later, the Land Rover stopped at the foot of the residential area. It was just the beginning of the nightlife, and the area was full of various food stalls. The smell of cooking fumes drifted in the air, and vendors were shouting at the top of their lungs. There were many people out drinking, eating skewers, and making a lot of noise. Sherlin's Land Rover looked out of place in this area. Lin Mian did not let him enter the community, but stopped by the side of the road, because the road conditions in the community were worse, and there were many people, so if you weren't careful, you would bump into someone. Thank you for bringing me back. Goodbye. Lin Mian politely thanked him and tried to open the door to get out. The next second, she heard a click, and the car door locked. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at the man, confused. I'll say it again. Stay away from Chinli. Be a little more careful. Understand? He had said this many times, and Lin Mian was really a little angry. She took a deep breath and looked at Sherlin with displeasure. Dr. Sher, it's my own business to decide who to stay close to and who to stay away from. You can't even manage my relationships just because you slept with me twice. You've overstepped your bounds, do you know that? Chapter 26, she didn't even have the strength to cry. Sherlin didn't expect her to dare to talk back. His face turned 2 shades darker. Lin Mian, you're being stubborn, aren't you? Lin Mian plucked up the courage to continue. I'm telling the truth, and Teacher Chinli is so kind to you, but you keep saying bad things about him behind his back, trying to drive a wedge between us. Dr. Sher, forgive me for saying this, but it's you I want to stay away from. Sherlin clenched the steering wheel, and the veins in his forearm jumped. Good, very good. She's become so sharp-tongued. A soft bunny that bites when it wants to, without warning. It seems that the soft and flabby appearance she had in bed was all an act. Dr. Sher, please unlock the door. Lin Mian said stiffly. Sherlin turned his head and stared at her. In the dimly lit car, his eyes were dark and sharp, as if he were going to see through her. Lin Mian straightened her back and looked at him without fear. She had been hiding for 2 days and was tired of it. Lin Mian, you're quite a character. Sherlin suddenly sneered and spat out a few words. With a click, the car lock was opened. Lin Mian didn't have time to think about the meaning of his words, and she jumped off the car as soon as she opened the door. As if she was afraid that he would chase after her, her figure disappeared quickly in the residential area. Sherlin sat in the car, irritated, and lit a cigarette. After a few puffs, he felt even more irritated, so he put out the cigarette. He closed his eyes and muttered a curse as he thought about the woman's words. Shit. She's so stubborn. I really want to hold her down and do her in. It seems that last time I was too lenient. Lin Mian almost ran all the way home. She leaned against the door and patted her chest, breathing heavily. She had said those things on impulse, and now she thought they were really too harsh. The man must be furious. Never mind. He already has a new lover anyway, so let's just completely break up with him. From now on, just avoid him when you see him. Lin Mian rushed into the bathroom, took a shower, changed into pajamas, and then lay down exhausted on the bed and turned on her phone. As soon as she turned it on, countless text messages popped up. There was also a long series of voice messages in WeChat. They all came from the same person, Lin's mother. Lin Mian opened a few of them at random, and the obscenities and curses kept coming. Finally, she was at her wit's end and resorted to the most shameless threat. You little brat, don't think you can get away with turning off your phone. If you don't transfer the money to me by tomorrow, I'll go to your school with a knife and kill myself, splashing blood everywhere. You're the one who's forcing me to kill myself. I will destroy you even if I die, so that everyone on the internet knows what kind of ungrateful scum you are. When I die, your father won't be able to live in peace either. The more she said, the more extreme she became, and she was close to going crazy. Lin Mian knew that she was capable of doing such a thing. When Lin's mother asked for the first installment of money, she threatened her with a knife at her father's neck. Later, blood flowed, and her father's neck was cut open, and so was her mother's neck. The blood gushed out, soaking the floor and her clothes. They almost died that time, and she almost became known for forcing her parents to death. Lin Mian has spent all these years in the shadow of this incident, but she can't escape it every time. She has to accept it, generation after generation. She closed her eyes, opened WeChat, transferred all the remaining money, and then typed a line. This is all I have. If you keep pressuring me, I won't have any more. You'll have to find another way. After a few minutes, the other party received the money and finally stopped. Lin Mian took out Qin Li's WeChat account and sent a message saying that she had arrived home. The other person must have been busy and hadn't replied to her for a long time. She turned off her phone and buried her head in the covers. A great exhaustion swept over her, as if the blood in her limbs and bones had been drained. In the past, whenever she was asked for money, she would hide under the covers and cry in secret. But now, she didn't even have the strength to cry. Bang! There was a loud crash outside, so loud that Lin Mian was startled. Chapter 27, She Would Rather Die Than Be Raped. Damn it, that bitch is going out with a man behind my back again. Outside, the drunken man continued to shout and curse, and then there was the sound of various things being smashed, so loud that even her door was shaking. Lin Mian realized that the neighbor next door had returned. She only rented a small studio apartment and shared a living room with 2 other neighbors. The couple next door happened to be a middle-aged couple. The man often came home drunk in the middle of the night, cursing and occasionally breaking things. Because the soundproofing was not very good, she was always woken up by the noise. On a few occasions, the man smashed a bottle of wine against her door, causing her to live in fear for half the night. But the rent was cheap in such a place, and it was naturally messy and mixed, so she had no choice. Lin Mian listened to the angry noises outside and sighed in her heart. She didn't have the money to rent a better place right now, so she just had to put up with it. The man outside smashed things for a while before gradually calming down. Lin Mian let out a sigh of relief and was about to turn off the light and go to bed when the door to her room suddenly started to bang. Lin Mian sat up in bed in fright. Bang! 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 The knocking continued. Who is it? Lin Mian asked warily. A drunken man's slurred voice came from outside. It's me, your neighbor. Open the door, little girl. What do you want? I need to talk to you. Open the door and I'll come in and talk to you. I'm not comfortable. What do you want to say to me through the door? Lin Mian was wary and did not open the door. The man outside was getting a little impatient and knocked on the door a few more times, loudly. Little girl, we're neighbors, can't we get to know each other? Open the door first, let's be friends. You're a college student, right? I've never had a college student before. Hearing this, Lin Mian's heart instantly rose to her throat. She grabbed the quilt and shouted loudly, I don't want to know you, you better leave, or I'll call the police. The drunken man outside the door hesitated for a moment, then kicked the door hard and cursed. Damn it, I've been to the police station so many times, I'm not afraid of you calling the police. If you have the guts, you can call the police. I'm going to break down the door today. You little bitch, I'll kill you. The door was kicked so hard that Lin Mian was scared out of her bed. She grabbed the scissors on the table and stood shivering by the window. The cursing outside continued, and the doorknob was twisted with a loud click, as if the man would break in the next second. Lin Mian's back was covered in cold sweat. There was nothing in the room to defend herself with. She was on the 10th floor, and the other neighbors had obviously not returned yet. No one would help her if she yelled. In desperation, Lin Mian took out her cell phone from the bed and, trembling, dialed 110 to report the crime. She was so nervous that her fingers trembled and slipped to a number in the call history, and she dialed it with her eyes closed. Hello, police station? Someone is harassing me at 1109, Unit 1, Building 3, Wanchuating Community. They are banging on the door. As soon as she finished speaking, she heard a loud crash, and the door to the room was kicked open by a man. The drunkard outside was reeking of alcohol, his eyes clouded, staring at her as she walked in. Don't come any closer. Lin Mian shouted in fear, holding a pair of scissors. Hee, keep screaming, you'll have plenty of time to scream later. The drunkard lunged at her with a loud grunt. Lin Mian screamed and held the scissors tightly, stabbing at the man. The man dodged and then took the scissors from her and pinned her to the bed. The phone fell to the floor, and Lin Mian desperately tried to break free, but the man held her down with his fat, disgusting body. Move again and I'll kill you. The man pressed the tip of the scissors against her neck and said viciously. On the other end of the phone, Sherlin heard the commotion on the other end of the line, and her face instantly turned dark and cold. Lin Mian? He called out to the phone several times, but there was no response from the other end. All that could be heard was the sound of her struggling intermittently. He turned the steering wheel directly and drove quickly to Lin Mian's apartment. Lin Mian was heavily pressed against the bed by the drunk man, with his greasy hands all over her body. The stench of alcohol filled her nose, mixed with a stench, and she felt nauseous. The man's movements continued, trying to tear Lin Neon's pajamas. She turned her head and bit the man's wrist hard. The man screamed in pain and threw away the scissors. He raised his hand and slapped her in the face. "Bitch, I'll kill you." Lin Neon was beaten until her head was ringing. She gritted her teeth and, in a panic, reached for the scissors on the bed and stabbed the man viciously. If she was to be ravaged by such a man, she would rather die. Ah! The man's belly was slashed open by her, and his clothes were already in tatters, but he seemed to be even more excited. He grabbed her hair with his bloodshot eyes and pressed his smelly mouth down on her. Bang! The door, which was already wobbly, was kicked open again. Chapter 28. Beg me, be cute, let me take you home. A tall, slender figure suddenly barged in. He grabbed the man by the back of his shirt and dragged him to the ground. With a bang, his strong fist hit the man in the face. Punch after punch, mercilessly. The man was beaten to the point where he could not defend himself, lying on the ground moaning in pain. In a short time, his face was covered in blood, and he was almost half dead. When the man's cries gradually weakened, Sherlin coldly kicked him a few more times, making sure he couldn't get up, and then stood up to see how Lin Neon was doing. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" Lin Neon gasped for breath, grabbed the quilt on the bed and wrapped herself up tightly, tears falling uncontrollably. Sherlin looked at her half-swollen face, with a palm print on it, her long hair messy and falling down, her expression dull, and her whole body shaking uncontrollably. He went over to the bed, pulled back the quilt, took the sheets and wrapped her in them, then picked her up and carried her out. When he reached the door, Sherlin glanced at the cell phone that had fallen on the floor. He bent down to pick it up and threw it into her arms. Lin Neon was held by Sherlin and stuffed into the car. She couldn't come back to her senses for a long time, until Sherlin was about to pull the sheets off her body. Lin Neon shuddered violently and reflexively dodged his hand. "Let me see if you're hurt," Sherlin reminded her. Lin Neon's emotions slowly relaxed, staring at Sherlin blankly, and said in a hoarse voice, "Call the police, keep calling the police." Sherlin said, "I already called the police. The police will be here soon. Be a good girl and open the sheet so I can check your body." Lin Neon shook his head and said, "I'm not hurt. I'm fine." "You have a huge bruise on your face and you say you're fine?" Sherlin asked coldly. Lin Neon bit her lip and remained silent, wrapping herself up tightly and curling up in the passenger seat. She lowered her head and refused to let Sherlin touch her. Sherlin took a deep breath and had no choice but to turn on the air conditioning and heating in the car. His hands were still covered in blood, and they smelled faintly of fish. He took a bag of alcohol wipes from the glove compartment and wiped his hands carefully. After a few minutes, a police car with flashing lights stopped downstairs. Sherlin had called the police on the way. Sherlin pushed open the car door and went outside to talk to the police for a while. A few police officers came upstairs and a short while later, they escorted the drunken man down. The man was escorted to the police car, and the police officer confirmed the information with Sherlin, asking the victim to go to the police station to make a statement. Sherlin nodded and turned back to the car. "I'll take you to the police station to make a statement. Are you in a condition to go to the police station?" Lin Neon nodded subconsciously when she heard him. "Yes." "Good, then fasten your seatbelt," Sherlin reminded her. Lin Neon silently reached out to fasten her seatbelt. The police lights in front of them flashed to clear the way, and Sherlin's car followed behind them. Lin Neon finally calmed down on the road, wiping away tears and not forgetting to thank him. "Thank you." If he hadn't barged in at the critical moment, the consequences for her would have been unimaginable. Sherlin said with a smile, "You called for help yourself, so I couldn't not help you." "What are you thanking me for?" Lin Neon was stunned for 2 seconds. "I clearly called the police. How did it end up on Sherlin's phone?" And she deleted his number. Her hand was too precise. "The police reported to me that you have a good hand," Sherlin said with a hint of humor. "You are lucky that you dialed the right number. If it were someone else, I'm afraid you would have been." He didn't say the rest. Lin Neon shuddered in fear and wrapped himself up even more tightly. It was 2 hours later before they arrived at the police station and completed the report. Because the evidence was conclusive, the drunkard was temporarily detained in a detention center, and the outcome would be dealt with after he sobered up. After a night of turmoil, Lin Mian was exhausted. As she left the police station, a cool breeze blew, and she suddenly shivered. Sherlin then went to get the car, and then stopped in front of her. Lin Mian tacitly opened the door and got in. The Land Rover started up and slowly left the police station. "Are you going back?" Sherlin asked. Lin Mian nodded, yes. Sherlin turned the steering wheel and made a turn on the road. "We're not going the same way. It's too late. I'm going back to Bafang City." "Are you going to take the bus back?" Lin Mian continued to nod, okay. Sherlin changed the route and drove to Bafang City. The Land Rover slowly stopped in the garage, the engine turned off, and it stopped moving. Lin Mian saw this and once again thanked him seriously, then opened the door and tried to get out. The next second, his wrist was grabbed by Sherlin. "Are you going back?" he asked again. "Yes." "Not scared anymore?" Sherlin narrowed his eyes. Lin Mian pursed her lips, her long eyelashes fluttering, and she lowered her head and said in a muffled voice, "Yes." After what had happened, she couldn't help being afraid. And the door was broken, so it wouldn't even lock tonight. But what if she is afraid? She has no choice but to go back with her head held high. "Will you ask for help?" Sherlin suddenly asked. "Huh?" Lin Mian didn't react. Sherlin grabbed her wrist and pulled her back, and his tall and slender body moved closer, enveloping her in the unique scent of a man. "Beg me, be cute, let me take you home." Chapter 29, "Please, let me stay for the night." Lin Mian froze for a moment. She really didn't expect Sherlin to say that, and her head buzzed. She never liked to trouble others, and she would never ask for help unless she was asked. She didn't want to trouble others, even if she was scared. Especially since this person was Sherlin. She had just had a heated argument with him a few hours ago, and he was already tired of her. Lin Mian reacted with some hindsight, looking at the half-grown man in front of her with red eyes, moving her lips, and she still said it without backbone. "Please, can you let me stay for the night?" She thought for a moment, and then politely added, "If it's not convenient, then forget it." Sherlin. He had brought her to the doorstep, so clearly and explicitly, how could it be inconvenient? He said two words with a dark face, "Follow me." Lin Mian wrapped herself in the bedsheet and got off the car silently to follow him. After getting out of the elevator, she swiped her fingerprint to enter the door. Sherlin changed his shoes and went into the living room on his own. Lin Mian felt obliged to rummage through the shoe cabinet and find a pair of disposable slippers to put on before she carefully walked in. His home was too clean, with bright, high-end lighting. Every inch of light seemed to scrutinize her from above, as if it were going to penetrate her from the inside out. Lin Mian, the bed sheets she was wrapped in, and the ragged pajamas she was wearing all seemed as cheap as trash. She suddenly regretted coming up with him. In the face of fear and inferiority, it seemed that the latter made her even more embarrassed. Throw away that ragged sheet and go take a shower. Sherlin took out a bathrobe from somewhere and threw it into her arms. Lin Mian caught it instinctively and walked to the guest room bathroom. When she looked in the mirror while taking a shower, she realized that half of her face was swollen, with several large fingerprints on it, and her ears were also red. Her eyes were red, her hair was messy, and she looked like a mess. No wonder Sherlin would be willing to take her back. After all, she looked like a down-and-out, lost girl who needed to be saved. Whether it was selling her eggs or being violated, he had saved her once and now he was saving her a second time. It seemed that she owed him another favor. Lin Mian took a deep breath and turned on the shower, burying herself in the water. After taking a shower, Lin Mian wrapped herself in a bathrobe and realized that her feet and calves were bruised and there were a few small scratches. They were from when she struggled with the drunk man, and they were only starting to hurt. "Come here." Sherlin was sitting on the sofa, with a medical kit on the coffee table in front of her, next to which were cotton swabs, iodine, and an ice pack. Lin Mian obediently walked over and sat on the sofa. Sherlin threw the ice pack into her arms, then unscrewed the iodine and applied it to her leg wound. He is a doctor, and his technique is very skilled. When he lowers his eyes, he looks serious and focused. Lin Mian silently placed the ice pack on half of her face. The cool temperature offset the heat on her face. For some reason, even her ears felt a little warm. After a while, the wound was disinfected, and Sherlin put a few band-aids on her leg, then methodically closed the medical kit. "Thank you, Dr. Sher, for tonight." Lin Neon apologized to him with a sense of shame. "What I said before was too hurtful. I didn't expect you to still be willing to come and save me, and to take me in. I'm really sorry. I apologize to you." Sherlin wiped his hands with alcohol and glanced at her. "Lin Neon, whether it's an apology or a thank you, sincerity is required. Understand?" "What?" Lin Neon was stunned for a second. "What sincerity?" "For example," he chuckled, looking at her sideways, "have sex with me." Chapter 30, Focus. Lin Neon's head exploded. Looking at the man's superior and good-looking face, her ears flushed and turned completely red. She didn't expect him to say the most shocking thing in the most indifferent tone. "Do you want to?" Sherlin's calm gaze was as dark and deep as the night outside the window at the moment, bottomless and black, and the feeling of being invaded came back. Lin Neon's nerves were on edge, and the hairs on her back stood on end. "I don't want to. But I want to." Sherlin's already low voice became even lower, with a hint of hoarseness. Lin Neon's fingertips clenched, her lips moved, and she was about to say no, but it was already too late. Sherlin grabbed her arm and pulled her forward, and with his other hand, he grabbed her head and kissed her deeply. Ba-da. The ice pack fell to the ground. The man's unique and exclusive breath hit her face, splashing between her nostrils, hot and burning, as if her skin was about to burn. Lin Neon's breath caught in her throat, and she subconsciously wanted to move away, but in the moment she turned her head, her back of the head was firmly fixed by the man's large palm. "Don't move." His voice was hoarse and carried an irresistible command. Lin Neon's heart was pounding. She had just been harassed by a drunkard earlier that night, and the memory of it still haunted her. Even though the man in front of her was a handsome and outstanding man, her body and limbs still trembled uncontrollably. "Open your eyes and look at me." Sherlin's low, hoarse voice ordered in her ear, and Lin Neon was forced to open her eyes and look at the handsome face that was so exquisite that it made her heart flutter. "Do you know the best way to get rid of fear?" Sherlin pressed his forehead against hers and said in a low voice, "It's to cover it with another kind of stimulation." The next second, Lin Neon felt her waist tighten and her whole body was lifted into the air. In the midst of the chaos, her back sank into the soft bed. She closed her eyes and resigned herself to following him down. Lin Neon slept very deeply, not suffering from insomnia at all. When she woke up the next day, the familiar ceiling and floor-to-ceiling windows once again came into view. The images from the previous night came into her mind one by one, clear and hot. She knew that she had once again fallen into the city of Bafang. The other side of the bed was empty, with no trace of Sherlin, but the whole bed was covered in his unique and exclusive scent. Lin Neon dragged her aching legs out of bed, picked up the bathrobe that had fallen to the ground and wrapped it around her, then pushed open the door and walked out. There was no one in the living room either, only a note left behind. Something came up, "I'll be out for half an hour." The two words in the lower right corner of the note were vigorous and powerful, and the characters were so strong that they could be seen through the paper, and they somehow resembled him. Lin Neon looked at the time. It was only a little after 6, and there was still a long way to go before work. She decided to go to the kitchen and looked around. The refrigerator was empty except for a dozen bottles of soda. She thought about it for a moment, took out her phone and ordered some takeout, as well as some ingredients. Half an hour later. When Sherlin came back, she smelled a fragrance. There was a shadow moving in the kitchen, and a bunch of takeout boxes were placed on the dining table. There were quite a few items, and they looked quite generous. Sherlin glanced at the price of the order and her eyes deepened. She rented a small, dirty and shabby studio for herself, but she was very generous when it came to treating others to meals. A typical flattery personality. Chapter 31. The Same Woman. "You're back?" The kitchen door was open and Lin Neon came out with 2 plates of cold dishes. She was still wearing the same nightgown from the night before, with a deep V neckline that was loose and hanging loosely, revealing her delicate collarbone. Her fair face was still swollen and red, not completely gone. She looked pitiful. There were still a few bruises on her neck, from his sudden urge last night. Lin's eyes darkened, and he looked at the small dishes on the table, raising his eyebrows at her. "Did you make these?" Lin Neon nodded. "I have to thank you for saving me last night. A breakfast is not enough to show my gratitude." Sherlin sat down and said with a half smile, "Didn't you already thank me last night?" Lin Neon's face instantly turned red. I. She opened her mouth, suddenly not knowing what to say. Okay, sit down and eat. Sherlin picked up the chopsticks and beckoned to her. Lin Neon shut her mouth and sat obediently across from Sherlin, absent-mindedly drinking her congee. The images from last night kept playing in her mind. The previous 2 times were all business, and she didn't know what this relationship was. A casual sex partner? A one-night stand? Or an unspoken understanding between adults? How much is the rent for the apartment you rented? Sherlin suddenly asked her. Lin Neon snapped back to reality and answered subconsciously, 1,500. This is the cheapest single room in the downtown area of Beicheng. Change it. Ha? Moving, do you understand? Sherlin looked at her and repeated. This time, Lin Neon understood. Even if he didn't say it, she wouldn't dare to live there. Although the drunkard from last night was arrested, his wife still lived next door, and it was hard to say that she wouldn't find trouble with her. I understand. I'll look for a place in another neighborhood. Lin Neon nodded. Sherlin had finished eating, picked up his phone, and sent a few WeChat messages. Then, he suddenly looked up at Lin Neon, frowning in displeasure. Did you delete my WeChat? Lin Neon was stunned for 2 seconds, then she reacted and looked down and said in a low voice, You were the one who blocked me first. She still remembered the red exclamation mark. Sherlin was silent for a few seconds, and finally remembered that he had indeed blocked her. After sleeping with her before, he thought that he would not sleep with her again, so he blacklisted her. If you sleep with the same woman 3 times, the nature of the relationship changes, and in most cases, you won't be able to get rid of it. I didn't expect. Sherlin looked up at the woman across from him, thought for a moment, and then sent her his QR code. Add me. Although Lin Neon didn't understand why, when she saw his piercing and irresistible eyes, she immediately took out her phone and added him. Sherlin quickly approved. The first thing she did was open her WeChat account and transfer a certain amount of money. Lin Neon looked up at him in surprise when she saw the transfer of 50,000 in the chat box. Keep the money. I don't have the habit of sleeping with women for nothing. Take the money and rent a decent place to live. Don't hang around in that settlement. I can't always save you without a hitch. Sherlin put away his phone and his expression returned to the same dull and calm look he had during the day. So all the things he did last night and all the things he said were just for the sake of sleeping? It was still a transaction. Lin Neon stood there for a few seconds, then quickly digested the fact, her finger hovering over the screen, biting her lip to accept the money. Dr. Sher is so generous. Thank you, Dr. Sher. Sherlin frowned as he listened to this, always feeling that there was a hint of sarcasm in it. He narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, Lin Neon, if you run out of money next time. Chapter 32, After sleeping, you don't recognize people. Dr. Sher, it's getting late, I should go to work, so I won't bother you anymore. I also need to borrow your guest room for a while, so I can change my clothes. Lin Neon interrupted him, and before he could finish, she got up and ran into the guest bedroom. Not only had she ordered takeout that morning, but she had also bought a dress in the same city and had it delivered to Sherlin's apartment along with the takeout. She didn't have time to clean it, so she just took the tag off and put it on, then put on the cheapest sneakers and rushed off to work. Fortunately, she had dinner with Qinli last night, and her toolbox was in Qinli's car, so she could go directly to the company today. She didn't say a word to Sherlin until she was out the door. Sherlin sat in the living room, her deep eyes following her figure from the guest bedroom to the living room, then to the door, and then she opened the door and walked out, slamming the door shut. The whole set of movements was fluid. He stood on the sofa for a few seconds, his calm face gradually turning dark. It took him a long time to throw his phone down, and then he walked into the dining room and emptied the 2 plates of food into the trash can. Good, after sleeping, she took the money and ran away. She did business more cleanly and efficiently than he did. Lin Neon, you are really something. Lin Neon arrived at the company early in the morning and learned that there were other work arrangements today, so she didn't need to go to the hospital for measurements. She was relieved. She finished her work in the morning and had some free time in the afternoon. She went to Qinli to ask for leave, saying that she needed to find a place to move as soon as possible. Didn't you just move? Qinli was puzzled. Lin Neon gave a general account of what happened last night, but did not go into detail, only saying that the environment was chaotic and not suitable for living in anymore. Shinli sensed her difficulty and thought about it for a while before directly suggesting, Nian, why don't you live in my neighborhood? It's very close to the company, which is convenient for you to go to work, and most importantly, it's very safe. Shinli's community? Bafang City? Lin Neon was so shocked that her hair stood on end. She couldn't help but sigh, Master, I'm just a small intern. My monthly salary isn't even enough to rent a place in Bafang City. How could she afford to rent an apartment in such a high-end luxury building? Don't worry about that. The company has staff quarters. There are a few apartments in Bafang City that are part of a support program for interns. Just submit an application to the HR department and you can move in before the end of the day if you're fast. Employee dormitory? Lin Neon was shocked. How come she hadn't heard about the company's employee dormitories before she started working here? This benefit was just decided not long ago, and it hasn't been implemented yet. You can consider yourself one of the first employees. I'm free this afternoon, so I can help you move. Shinli smiled calmly. Lin Neon didn't expect that she would be so lucky, and she immediately nodded happily. Okay, I'll go write an application. Yes, go ahead. Shinli smiled and pampered her. Lin Neon walked a few steps, suddenly remembered something, and turned to look at Shinli and asked, Master, do you know which buildings the apartments in Bafang City are in? Sherlin also lives in Bafang City, and she is afraid of running into Sherlin in the same building. I don't know that well. You go ahead and write the application. I'll make a call and let you know in a bit. Shinli said. Okay, thank you, Master. Lin Neon turned and walked out of the office. Shinli watched her go far away, then took out his cell phone and dialed a number. Hello, Sherlin, do you have an empty apartment in the Octagon City that no one is living in? How about renting it to me? Chapter 33, Moving into Rin's house across the street. My house is never for rent. Sherlin coldly rejected him on the other end of the phone. Shinli sighed, I'm also in a hurry, so for the sake of our friendship over the years, you can do me a favor and rent it for a month. Sherlin, what do you need a rental for? Shinli said, a girl in the company had an accident last night and needed to move. The rental community where she lived was too chaotic, so I was worried and thought about getting some staff quarters for her to come to Bafang City. Lin Neon? Sherlin asked indifferently. You figured it out so quickly? It seems like nothing can hide from you. She is my little apprentice after all, and I always want to take care of her a little. But if you don't want to rent it, that's fine. I'll find another place. Shinli knew his temper. Doctors are a bit of a clean freak, and don't like outsiders touching their things. He can understand. Sherlin was silent for a moment, and then suddenly said, I can rent it to you, but I don't like too many people. It's best to keep it to one person, and it can't be changed into a staff dormitory. Shinli immediately agreed, okay, no problem. As long as Lin Neon can move in, these are all minor problems. Sherlin hung up the phone and quickly sent a string of house numbers and passwords. Shinli sent him a red envelope, which he refused to accept. He never cared for such petty money, and Shinli was used to it. He would just invite him to dinner when the time came. He gave the door number to the HR department and gave them some instructions, making sure they didn't let the cat out of the bag. Lin Neon quickly completed the application procedures, and the house was assigned quickly. Within half an hour, Shinli came looking for her with the keys to his car. Lin Neon, let's go. I have nothing to do this afternoon, so I'll help you move. Lin Neon was very embarrassed, Master, I can move it myself. I don't have much stuff. Even if you have a lot of things, you're a girl, and you have to take the subway several times. I'll drive you there in one trip. Let's go. Shinli didn't give her a chance to refuse, and he went out first. Lin Neon had no choice but to follow him. She always felt that she was too much trouble for him, but now she was just a small intern with no capital to repay him. She could only keep this gratitude in her heart. When they arrived at the rental house, the living room was still messy, and the door to her small room was ajar. The lock had broken the day before. She had left in a hurry with Sherlin last night and had not had time to change the lock. But there was nothing valuable in the room except some clothes and daily necessities, so it didn't matter whether the lock was on or off. Lin Mian quickly packed up her things, putting them in a suitcase and a cardboard box. "Master, let's go." Sheely looked up and down at the small room, and a flash of surprise passed through his eyes. Then he sighed and said, "It's really too dangerous for a young girl to live here." Lin Mian smiled lightly and said, "Actually, it's not that bad here. I'm just unlucky to have a bad neighbor. Forget it, this kind of thing won't happen again." Sheely looked at her, his tone serious and gentle. "Mian Mian, you are very good and have outstanding abilities. I will teach you as best as I can. You will definitely get better and better in the future. Trust me." Lin Mian felt her heart being struck, and her eyes were a little hot. "Yes, I will try my best." "Good girl, let's go." Sheely rubbed her head and carried her old suitcase down the stairs with one hand. Lin Mian held the suitcase behind her and left the place without a trace. In the car, she called her landlord. Since the rental contract had not expired, the landlord would not return the deposit, but would refund the remaining rent to her. Lin Mian sat in the passenger seat and suddenly remembered an important piece of information. She turned to Qin Li and asked, "Master, you still haven't told me which building the staff dormitory is in." "You'll know when you get there." Qin Li smiled mysteriously, leaving her in suspense. Lin Mian could only look out the window in silence and pray in her heart. There are so many buildings in Bafang City, so it shouldn't be the one where Sherlin lives, right? There are no such coincidences in the world. Half an hour later, Lin Mian stood outside the apartment across from Sherlin's. She was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 34, She and Sherlin live on the same floor. This is too magical. Not only is she in the same building as Sherlin, but they're even neighbors? There are only 2 tenants per floor in this high-end apartment building, which means that she and Sherlin are on the same floor? Lin Mian's heart instantly became unstable. "Master, is this the company-allocated employee dormitory?" she asked, not giving up. "Yes, this is the only apartment left, but it hasn't been lived in for a long time, so you may need to clean it up." Qin Li entered the code and the door opened with a click. The interior decoration was revealed. Lin Mian looked at the style of the room's decoration and furniture and was dumbfounded again. These sofas, coffee tables, cabinets, beds, how are they exactly the same as those in Sherlin's house? If it weren't for the change in direction, she would have thought she was in the wrong place. "What's wrong? Are you dissatisfied with something?" Qin Li noticed her unusual behavior and asked her subconsciously. Lin Mian came back to her senses and shook her head dumbly. "No, I just find it a bit unbelievable. Do rich people's decorations and facilities all come in bulk designs? Even the furniture brands are the same. You don't need to be so nervous. It's just a place to live. Just settle in and work hard for me." Qin Li thought she was showing off, so he joked with her in a relaxed manner. Lin Mian forced herself to calm down and asked him again, "Am I the only one living here?" Qin Li scratched his head and replied without changing his expression, "At the moment, you are alone, but this is only temporary. When the other dormitories are vacated, you can move in again." "It's only temporary." Lin Mian was relieved and finally less nervous. "Okay, thank you, master. Don't be polite to me." Qin Li helped her move all her luggage into the room, showed her around, and then, after seeing that Lin Mian was about to pack her clothes, he tactfully prepared to leave. "Then you go ahead and pack. You've been given half a day off today, so just relax and stay put." Lin Mian nodded and thanked him repeatedly. After leaving Lin Mian's apartment, Qin Li sat in the car and took out his phone to call his secretary. "Check which properties are still for sale in Bafang City. I want to buy a few, the sooner the better." "Mr. Qin, why are you buying so many apartments?" The secretary was puzzled. "To build staff quarters." "Secretary? When did their company benefits become so good that the staff quarters are in a high-end apartment?" On the other side, Lin Mian packed her clothes and made the bed, and she was so tired that she was sweating. She collapsed on the bed, took out her phone and looked at the time. It was already 5 p.m. and it was getting dark. It was just like going to work. Buzz. The phone vibrated twice, and a notice was sent out in the company group chat. The gist of it was that the company dorms were open to all employees, and that interns could apply for dormitory accommodation. It also called on everyone to prioritize safety when renting a place to live. This notice caused quite a stir. Many people in the small group lamented. This batch of interns is really lucky. The company didn't have this many benefits before, and the old employees lost 100 million yuan. I heard that it's the high-end apartment that President Qin lives in. Jealousy makes me look completely different. I even want to be an intern. Lin Nian looked at the messages in the group chat and quietly exited the interface. Fortunately, they didn't know she had moved in, or they would be even more jealous. But this apartment clearly has other bedrooms, so why was it approved for her to live alone? Lin Nian thought about it for a long time but still couldn't figure it out, so she just stopped thinking about it. She lay on the bed for a while, then got up and continued working. There was a lot of garbage in the trash can, so Lin Nian was going to take it out. She peered cautiously through the peephole and took a look across the way. The door was closed, so Sherlin must not have returned yet. She took advantage of the fact that there was no one on the other side, picked up the garbage bag and walked out. Just as she closed the door on the other side suddenly opened. Chapter 35, Not Treating Herself as a Stranger. Sherlin leaned against the doorframe, seemingly not surprised by her appearance at all, and looked very calm. "Have you moved?" he asked lightly. Lin Nian nodded and forced a smile. "Yes, what a coincidence. Dr. Sher, we are actually neighbors." Afraid that Sherlin would think she was deliberately approaching him, Lin Nian unnecessarily explained, "This is the company's employee dormitory. I just applied for it this afternoon. It was randomly assigned." "What a coincidence." Sherlin snorted, "Your company has good benefits." Lin Nian was speechless. For some reason, she always sensed a strange flavor in his voice. She turned to throw out the trash, and the man stopped her behind her. "Wait. What's wrong?" Lin Nian turned her head instinctively. "I have something to return to you." Sherlin turned around and came back out a few seconds later, holding out his hand to her. Between his knuckles, he was holding a pair of white underwear with a small floral print. Lin Nian's head exploded when she saw this. Her entire face suddenly turned red as if it was bleeding. He still had it. She had hurriedly changed her clothes in the morning and put away all the other pajamas, but she had forgotten the underwear in the toilet. She never thought that he would pick it up and then proudly offer it back to her. Lin Nian was extremely embarrassed and hurriedly reached for the underwear, rubbing it into a ball in the palm of her hand and putting it into her pocket. "Is there anything else?" "No." Sherlin casually withdrew his hand, and his fingertips seemed to have been rubbed a few times, as if he was still enjoying the taste. Lin Nian ran away with her garbage, blushing. The garbage can was in the hallway. When she came back from taking out the trash, not only was Sherlin's door still open, but there was also a tall figure standing at her door, chatting with Sherlin across the hallway. "Master, why are you here?" Lin Nian exclaimed. Sherlin shook the large plastic bag in his hand and smiled. "You just moved, you lack everything, so I bought you some household goods and some vegetables and food to put in the refrigerator." Lin Nian was so touched that she didn't know what to say. "Master, I'm already grateful that you applied for a dormitory for me. How can I let you spend so much money? This is too much." "It's nothing, I've already bought it. You can't expect me to take it back, can you?" Sherlin winked and smiled slyly. Lin Nian of course could not drive him away, and quickly opened the door and invited him in. "Come in and sit down. Otherwise, I'll treat you to dinner. You've helped me so much, I have to show my appreciation. Otherwise, I'd be embarrassed." Lin Nian felt a little uncomfortable. She felt guilty for being so indebted to him and was always thinking about how to repay him. "That's fine, but I don't want to eat out. I bought a lot of ingredients, so you can treat me to some home-cooked food. I've been wanting to try your cooking." Sherlin shook the bag, and there were a lot of vegetables and meat in it, enough for several meals. He knew that the young girl was in a difficult financial situation and didn't have much money. He didn't mind paying for the meal. Lin Nian readily agreed. "Okay, I'll show you what I can do." The two were talking happily at the door, completely forgetting that there was a watchful onlooker across the way. Sherlin glanced over and saw Sherlin leaning against the doorframe, staring at them expressionlessly with his arms folded, like a sad door god. Thinking that he was the landlord of the house, Sherlin touched his nose and asked in a nosy tone, "Do you want to join us?" Lin Nian panicked. Before she could give Sherlin a signal, the man spoke casually. Yes. Lin Mian. Xianli. He really doesn't consider himself an outsider. Xianli had bought a comprehensive range of ingredients, including vegetables, meat, and various spices. Lin Mian walked into the kitchen with a bunch of ingredients and started cooking with a clatter. During the process, Xianli wanted to help, but she pushed him out with all her might. She insisted that she would cook the whole meal. Xianli saw that she was really stubborn, so she had to compromise and go out. This little girl, she looks soft and pliable, but she's quite stubborn. Xianli wandered back to the living room and sighed to Sherlin on the sofa. He had seen her like this before, and he glanced at the kitchen without looking, and his lips curled up. No matter how stubborn she is, she will still be obedient in bed. Lin Mian made a few dishes, made a fish soup, and then mixed 2 plates of side dishes, and then served them one by one on the dining table. The table was full of color, aroma, and flavor, and it looked so appetizing. Nian Nian, your cooking is really good. Whoever marries you will be very lucky. Xianli was amazed by her cooking skills and couldn't help but praise her. Lin Mian smiled embarrassedly, it's just home cooking. I've been doing it since I was a child, so I'm very skilled at it. She really meant it. Her father had been paralyzed for many years and needed to supplement his nutrition, and her mother was picky about food, so Lin Mian had practiced good cooking skills since she was a child and could cook anything. Then I and Lao Shi will have a feast. Come on, let's eat. Xianli smiled and invited the two to dinner. Lin Mian's eyes followed Xianli's hand and just in time saw the man slowly get up from the sofa and walk to the dining table to sit down. He was sitting directly across from her, and she could see his superior face whenever she looked up. She didn't know if he was doing it on purpose or by accident. Lin Mian could only bury her head and eat honestly, calculating in her heart when she would finish eating and send him away. The next second, a foot suddenly brushed up against her calf, teasing her with a soft caress. Bang! Lin Mian's spoon fell on the table. Chapter 36. This man is really good at pretending. She suddenly looked up at Lin Chen, her pupils instantly dilating. He actually, openly and brazenly flirted with her in front of Xianli. What's wrong, Lin? Xianli asked her instinctively. Nothing, I just had a hand cramp. Lin Mian picked up the spoon and looked up at Sherlin warningly. However, Sherlin was sipping the fish soup with his eyebrows lowered, his expression indifferent, his eyes calm, just as he usually was, with his ascetic appearance. As if the restless foot under the table wasn't his. This man is really good at pretending. Lin Mian clenched her spoon and quietly moved her calf back. But the next second, he rubbed against her again, and inch by inch, he moved past her knees and toward her legs. The more she retreated, the more brazen the man became. She couldn't help but look up, and she saw Sherlin's eyes, which were full of provocation. He did it on purpose, just to embarrass her. Nian Nian, come on, eat more meat, you're too skinny. Xianli was still serving her food without knowing what was going on, and Lin Mian endured the strong discomfort and squeezed out a smile. Thank you, chef. Good, eat up. The foot under the table once again pressed against the depths of her thigh. Lin Mian clamped down on his foot, trying to hold him still. But it was useless. He was very strong, and she could not resist him no matter how hard she tried. Lin Mian bit her lip, trying not to embarrass herself in front of Xianli. This man was really getting worse and worse. Gradually, she discovered that whenever Xianli gave her a dish of food and she took a bite, Sherlin would thrust himself against her, and it happened every time. Lin Mian. In the end, her ears were so red and bloody that she dared not eat the food that Xianli had served her. Fortunately, the meal was almost over, and Lin Mian was half full. After they had finished eating, she hurriedly left her seat to wash the dishes. Xianli offered to help her with the dishes, but Lin Mian refused. He could only wait for her outside the kitchen door, chatting with her. Lin Mian, you are such a good cook, and you were so diligent and studious. You must have a good personality. Your father must be very proud of you, right? When it came to her father, Lin Mian's mouth started to water. Yes, he is very proud of me. He supports me in everything I do. Oh? What does your father do? Xianli asked tentatively. Lin Mian's eyes lit up, then fell. He has a disability in his legs and can't work on the ground. He sits in a wheelchair all year round and does some small carpentry. Xianli's eyes darkened, and a faint, unidentifiable light flashed. I'm sorry, I've hurt you. It's okay, he was paralyzed after a car accident, but he had a rehabilitation surgery recently, and in a few months he will be able to walk like a normal person. Lin Mian smiled, her eyes shining. So you've had a hard time these past few years? Li asked her quietly. Fortunately, I spent a lot of time looking for the driver who hit my father, but I couldn't find him, so I gave up. Lin Mian shrugged, as if she was used to it. Li looked at her soft and serene profile, opened his mouth, and wanted to say something, but ultimately swallowed it. The night was getting late. Li couldn't stay long, so after Lin Mian finished cleaning up the kitchen, he said goodbye to her and left with Sherlin. Lin Mian saw him off to the elevator and watched him get on the elevator before returning to the apartment. She was about to close the door. Suddenly, a hand reached in through the crack in the door and stopped her. Lin Mian looked up and saw Sherlin's superior and well-boned face. Under his thick eyebrows, his dark eyes were burning with heat. He actually dared to come here. What are you doing? Lin Mian blocked the doorway and looked at him, her face full of vigilance. She could still vividly recall the lewd actions he had just performed under the dining table, and her resentment had grown twofold. Sherlin walked in at an angle, closed the door with one hand, and his tall and slender body gradually approached her, finally blocking her against the entrance cabinet. Lin Mian's heart was beating a little fast. Just as she was about to push him away, she heard the man speak slowly and deliberately. Lin Mian, do you want to consider following me? Chapter 37, Addicted. What? Lin Mian froze, looking up at him. The man was now standing in front of her. In the dim light, his eyes were dark and his desire to take over was easily seen in his eyes. He was going to do it. Lin Mian moved her lips, feeling her throat go dry. What do you mean by following you? Don't understand? Then I'll be more direct. I want to support you, for the long term. Since I'm still interested in you, you can ask for a lot. Sherlin pinched her face and said in a clear voice, so, name your price. Lin Mian, no matter how much it is, it will be my maintenance fee for you. Boom. Lin Mian felt a thunderclap in her ears. She stared at him with wide eyes, and it took her a while to snap out of it, feeling her fingertips tremble. It turns out that his series of actions were all for this purpose. Sleep with her and support her? She bit her lip and turned her face away. What did you say? Sherlin frowned. I said I don't want to be supported by you, and I don't want to follow you. Lin Mian summoned up the courage to say it, her eyes filled with a strong sense of perseverance. Sherlin didn't seem to expect her to be so stubborn. He looked at her for a few seconds without moving, and then laughed. If you don't want to be with me, do you want to be with Li? Lin Mian. Why did he bring Li into this again? Seeing that she was silent, as if bewitched by a small animal at the edge of a trap, Sherlin spoke in a slow voice. Although Li is rich, he is not that easy to get. With your salary, which is now 6,000 yuan a month, or more than 70,000 yuan a year, after deducting the 5 insurances and 1 gold, and the expenses for food and drink, do you think that you can fill up that bottomless pit in your house with your hard work? You? Lin Mian opened her eyes wide and looked at him in disbelief. How did he know about her family? Sherlin's lips curled up in a faint smile. After the first night's sleep, she fell asleep, and the text message on her phone by her pillow vibrated in the middle of the night. He just glanced at her phone screen and knew she was short of money. After a little research in the morning, he knew that her family was a bottomless pit. You secretly checked me out? Lin Mian quickly reacted, and asked him in disbelief. Sherlin narrowed his eyes and did not deny it. Lin Mian, think about it. If you follow me, you won't have to worry about money in the short term, you won't have to be pressured by your family, and your father's leg will get the best treatment. We have a price tag, and we each get what we need. Price tag, take what you want. These words weighed heavily on Lin Mian's heart. Lin Mian took a deep breath and said in a hoarse voice, Why me? Sherlin said, maybe you're cleaner, more obedient, sleep better, and a little bit addicted. Look at these words. Each word hit her head with such irony and embarrassment. Lin Mian gritted her teeth and pushed him away with all her might. Sorry, I don't accept. Why? Sherlin looked down at her. Lin Mian clenched her fingers and stood there with her head bowed and silent. Even if she didn't speak, Sherlin knew what she was thinking about, nothing more than those ridiculous and intangible reputations. He snorted and spoke to her lightly. Lin Neon, there is no difference between selling once and selling many times. Since you have done it, don't set up a shrine for yourself. Smart people should think more about practical benefits. No, there is a difference. Lin Neon lowered her head and said in a hoarse voice, there is a big difference between sinking into the abyss and struggling to get out of the mud. She can compromise a few times, but she can't keep on being a loser forever. Sherlin looked at her solemnly, and his eyes gradually darkened. What a fool! He spat out 2 words. Lin Neon didn't want to hear him say anymore, and she turned her head to reject him calmly. Dr. Sher, I won't consider your deal. I have a job, I make money, and I have a bright future. I don't want to sink into the mud for the rest of my life. I still have to struggle to climb out of the mud. Sherlin looked at her deeply. I hope you will always think this way. He took a deep breath and then turned and walked away. The air was quiet again. Lin Neon leaned against the door and let out a long sigh. She knew she was being a bit pretentious and hypocritical, and that she shouldn't be so high and mighty after sleeping with someone else. But she still wanted to try, to make something of herself, to earn the money she wanted to earn. In the past, she had no choice. Now that she has a job, she will always try her best to earn money. Lin Neon went back to the bedroom and took a shower in the bathroom. She still had many red and purple marks on her body, which were left by Lin Jin last night. She couldn't help but think of his words, sleep well, be obedient, and get addicted. Chapter 38. Tonight, I'll eat meat. Lin Neon turned on the shower and let the hot water pour down on her, washing away all the messy things. In the following days, Lin Neon never saw Sherlin again. Even though they lived across the hall from each other, she never saw him again. She left early in the morning and returned late at night. During the day, she followed Qinli to the construction site at the company to learn about design, and then returned home in the evening to continue studying. Qinli praised her for learning quickly and being smart, so she had to work even harder. Before she knew it, a week had passed. Lin Neon began to follow Qinli to the hospital every day to work on the site. It was busy and fulfilling. When it was almost time to go home, Lin Neon went to the garage with a bunch of tools. She and Qinli now lived in the same neighborhood, and she often rode home in his car after work. Qinli was still busy and she waited in the garage for a while. Suddenly a Lamborghini stopped next to her, and Lin Neon subconsciously stepped back to make way, but the door opened and several men jumped out of the car. Yo, Lin Neon, are you on my lap? This vulgar voice. Lin Neon reflexively looked up and saw Song Ziyuan, the leader, at a glance. It had been a long time since she had seen him, but he was still the same carefree guy. Lin Neon didn't want to deal with them, and turned to try to hide further away, but Song Ziyuan blocked the road first. What are you running away for? Haven't seen you in a long time, don't you recognize your brother? Song Ziyuan smiled with his mouth twitching. Look at you, following Mr. Qin to do some shitty construction, getting yourself all dirty and dusty. This little face is dirty, let me help you wipe it off. He was about to do it, but Lin Neon reflexively dodged, frowning deeply. Don't touch me. Hey, after a while, your temper has gotten so bad. Your hot temper is even more fun. Since I'm in a good mood today, can you walk with me? I'll take you home. No, you should leave quickly. Lin Neon coldly refused. Song Ziyuan's smile disappeared. What, do you look down on me? As soon as he finished speaking, one of his followers laughed heartlessly. Brother Zay, what home are you sending her back to? You're just trying to lure her to your home, right? Ha 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 ha. There's a bed, and you can sleep. It's the same in any home. Is it to sleep or to sleep with someone? Ha ha ha. Several people nearby were making lewd jokes, and Lin Neon felt extremely embarrassed. She turned around and tried to run out, but Song Ziyuan grabbed her wrist tightly. The more Lin Neon struggled, he got even more excited. Lin Neon cried out in desperation, Song Ziyuan, your uncle is upstairs. How dare you touch me? Oh, you dare to threaten me with my uncle? Who do you think you are? Do you think my uncle will remember you after saving you once? Don't flatter yourself. Even if I hold you down here and do you right now, my uncle won't say a word. Song Ziyuan forced his way forward, grabbed her waist and shoved her into the car. Lin Neon struggled and screamed, but she was no match for the strength of several men. In desperation, she took out the tools in her bag and swung them furiously. Ah! With a scream, blood immediately began to flow from Song Ziyuan's forehead. Damn it, you little bitch, go get her. Song Ziyuan covered his forehead, his hands covered in blood, and he ordered in a panic. Several men immediately went after Lin Mian, who was a girl after all, and they caught her before she could run far. Brothers, let's have some fun tonight. It's her turn. Song Ziyuan ordered viciously. This woman has not been able to get it into her mouth 3 times, and he is still competing. Just as Lin Mian was about to be stuffed into the car, an angry voice came from afar. Stop it. Not far away, Jinli rushed over with a pale face, and without hesitation, he pulled Lin Mian behind him. When he looked up again, his eyes were filled with a deep chill. It was as if he was going to kill someone. It turned out to be Mr. Qin. Song Ziyuan smiled and said, Mr. Qin, Lin Mian is the one I want. Since she's off work, she's not your responsibility anymore, right? Since I've been working for you, how about you let me have her for one night? Get lost. Xinli coldly swore, if you ever dare to provoke her again, don't blame me for being unfriendly to you. Song Ziyuan said angrily, I've never seen you bothering any girl before. Before he could finish his sentence, Xinli turned to Lin Mian and said, Mian, you go wait in the car for me. I'll be right there. Lin Mian was just scared, obediently nodded, and hurriedly left with her toolbox. It wasn't until she got into the car and closed the door that Xinli turned his head. His handsome face, which had been casual and gentle, suddenly turned sullen. Song Ziyuan, don't touch her. He warned coldly, otherwise, for all the bad things you've done, I'll send you to jail in a minute. Song Ziyuan was unconvinced, we're all in the same boat. If I go to jail, do you think you can get away with it? Qinli narrowed his eyes coldly, then you try it. You die faster, or I fall faster. Song Ziyuan. You're going to tear your face off over a woman? He's really ruthless. Qinli glared at him coldly and turned around and went back to the car. Song Ziyuan stood there with his hands on his head, watching the rear of Qin Li's car disappear into the basement, and frowned in puzzlement. What's going on lately? Everyone is defending Lin Mian so much. His uncle is, and so is Qin Li. She's just an ordinary innocent girl. It's really a ghost. Song Ziyuan glared at the figure in front of him, and his head went numb. Little brother-in-law? Sherlin stood not far away, staring at him coldly, not knowing how long he had been standing there. Chapter 39, Do you have an affair with her? Just looking at that face, Song Ziyuan couldn't help but feel scared. When did you come, little brother-in-law? Why didn't you say anything? Sherlin stared at him sullenly and said stiffly, I have seen everything that I should have seen and everything that I shouldn't have seen. Song Ziyuan's back suddenly felt a chill. I was just joking with that girl, I didn't do anything to her, don't look at me with that kind of look. Sherlin withdrew his gaze from him, took out his phone and made a call. His cold voice was extremely chilling. Your son attempted to rape someone and is suspected of kidnapping, assault, and group crime. If you can't handle it today, I don't mind throwing him into the police station to be convicted. Song Ziyuan's scalp immediately went numb. Brother-in-law, you. He didn't know what was said on the other side, and Sherlin hung up the phone directly. When he looked up again, the coldness in his eyes was even more intense. Go back, your father is looking for you. Song Ziyuan's face turned pale when he heard the 2 words your father. Normally, no matter how evil he is, his father wouldn't care too much about him. But once Sherlin said something, he would die a miserable death within 3 months, both physically and mentally. The last time he offended Sherlin, he was beaten and had 2 ribs and both legs broken. He was locked up in a warehouse for 3 months and was not even allowed to take painkillers. Song Ziyuan's face was extremely bad. Little brother-in-law, are you going to treat me like this because of a woman? Do you have an affair with her? Sherlin's cold stare shot over, ask again, and the punishment will be doubled. Song Ziyuan obediently shut up. He watched as Sherlin got into the car and drove off in his Land Rover, leaving Song Ziyuan standing there with a gloomy expression on his face. Ziyu, what should we do now? The attendant next to him asked him helplessly. What can I do? My head is bleeding. Go get it bandaged. Song Ziyuan roared, shook his bloody hand, and hurriedly walked towards the elevator. Damn it, that little bitch Lin Mian. He's going to play with him. In the car, Qin Li apologized to Lin Mian while driving. I'm sorry, Mian Mian. I just got here late and caused you to be harassed by them. Lin Mian shook her head as she pinched her sore wrist. It's not your master's fault. They've been after me for a long time. They'd have stopped me no matter where I was. It's a good thing you were there today. Otherwise. Lin Mian lowered her head. She had thought that Song Ziyuan was just teasing her as usual, and that she would just have to endure it. But she never expected that this time he would go even further and try to force her into the car. She should have called the police. Lin Mian was slow to react and took out her phone, thinking about whether to call 110. Xili saw her thoughts before she did. Song Ziyuan's family is very powerful and has deep roots in Beicheng. Not many people can afford to offend him. Mian Mian, you will follow me in the future. He won't do anything to you. Lin Mian held the phone for a moment, and didn't move for a long time. Yes, she is just an ordinary person. No one can beat her. She was once stubborn, and she also fought for justice after her father's accident. She also desperately wanted to find out who the driver was. But then, someone said something to her. Lin Mian, don't investigate. The other party is too powerful. Even if you investigate for 10 years, you won't get any clues. If you still want your father to live, just give up. Lin Mian lowered her head and put away her phone. Seeing her sullen expression, Xinli thought for a moment and then brought up a topic. Shall I take you out for a bit of fun? Ha! You've always been interested in the architecture of the Tiandi International Center, so I'll take you there tonight. The Tiandi International Center is one of the largest landmarks in the North City and is the object of admiration for countless architecture students in the North City. Lin Mian had wanted to go inside countless times, but the threshold was too high, and it was a place where you needed to be a member to get in. Lin Mian's interest was indeed piqued. Can I go there at night? She remembered that the Tiandi International Center closed at night, and no one was allowed to enter. Xili smiled, that kind of place is only lively at night. Chapter 40 Don't be afraid, we're not good people. Night falls. Lin Mian had a meal with Xili before arriving at the Tiandi International Center. He didn't enter through the main entrance, but took her through a side entrance, then passed through a long underground corridor, and finally took an elevator to a high-level viewing platform. From here, you can see the entire internal structure of the building. Xili said with a smile. Lin Mian stood on the high platform, entranced by the spectacular and complex scene before her. After 4 years, she finally saw the entire interior of the building. Even though there were pictures of it in books, the blurry pictures were nowhere near as impressive as the 3D effect in front of her. This is the dream of all the architecture students in the North City. Lin Mian was so absorbed in the scene that she looked at every beam and load-bearing column with great care. She wants to design buildings like this in the future. An hour passed by without her noticing. Until several figures appeared in the hall below, and someone whistled at Xili upstairs in a tone that was extremely familiar. Mr. Qin, are you cultivating immortals up there? Come down and play with us. Xili glanced down at the people below and shook his head with a smile. I have something to do today, so I won't play with you. You can do whatever you want. What's wrong with going out with your girlfriend? It's boring just standing there. Why don't you bring her down and let us get to know her? We're not bad people. What are you afraid of? Someone said. That's right, get to know each other so that you can help each other out in the future. They were teasing each other, and Xili thought about it for a moment before turning to Lin Mian and asking. Nian Nian, do you want to go down and play? They are all important figures in Beicheng, and they may be able to help you in the future. Who doesn't need some connections in the construction industry? Especially this batch of high-quality connections. Lin Mian heard the meaning in his words. He wanted to give her more customer resources. Although she was a bit nervous, she still mustered up the courage to nod. Okay. So Xili said to the people below, book a room, I'll treat you. I'll be down in a moment. The people below laughed, and then went to find the waiter to open a private room. Among the crowd, there was a man who happened to be Lu Zibai. He had excellent eyesight and immediately saw Lin Mian next to Xili, and couldn't help but squint. If he remembered correctly, wasn't that little girl the one-night stand of Sherlin? Why was she dating Xili in a place like this at night? Xili is taking her into the private room to play? Lu Jibai thought about it for a moment, took out his phone, secretly took a photo, and sent it to Sherlin via WeChat. Lu Jibai, do you recognize this girl? Sherlin quickly replied. Lu Jibai, Li is here with his girlfriend on a date, and they're going to the VIP room to make an official announcement later. I didn't expect this. You told me not to get any ideas about her, but Li beat you to it, huh? What a shame. Sherlin only sent 2 simple words, the address. Lu Jibai raised his eyebrows, tapped his long fingers on the keyboard, and sent an address, along with the number of the private room. Lin Mian followed Li into the private room, and the gossipy stares of the people around her fell on her. Some couldn't help but make fun of her. Hey, she's still a young girl. Li, when did you change your taste? You're hiding it pretty well. Li explained slowly, don't tease me. Her name is Lin Mian. She's my little apprentice. She's a very spiritual girl. I'll be asking you all to take good care of her in the future. So she's your apprentice. No wonder she's so obedient and soft. She looks like she just came from the university town. Little sister, don't be afraid, none of us are good people. Several people chattered and joked, and Lin Mian sat next to Li, her face flushed. Although she had seen this scene when she was selling drinks at a club, she still felt uncomfortable being stared at by several pairs of eyes. Okay, you guys play your own games, don't scare her. Li picked up a glass and poured her a glass of juice, whispering to comfort her. It's okay, I'm here, so just relax. Lin Mian nodded obediently and tried to adapt to the atmosphere. The people at the table started chatting in a random manner. Lin Mian didn't know what to say, so she just kept drinking the drink in front of her. At this moment, the door to the private room suddenly opened. A tall, dark figure slowly walked in, and the cool, yet undeniable aura that came with it suddenly struck, causing the other people in the room to gasp. Lin Mian looked over subconsciously and bumped into the man's clear and deep eyes.